Apologies. Peace, everyone. Welcome again to Karmic Dynasty. I have with us today on the panel Buddha Eternal El Bay. Again, welcome to Karmic Dynasty for this outstanding appearance that I know you have prepared for us.
Gratitude. Shay, good thanks. Respect to you. How do you feel in your presence, in your space?
Peaceful gratitude. If you
Res-
would introduce yourself and greet everyone as you see best.
Yes, I get into a new ritual to myself, a new ceremonial piece. I am Wounded Buddha Feather Eternal. So when you hear Wounded Buddha, I mean, not Wounded Buddha, Wounded Feather Buddha Eternal. When we think of the wounded feather, those who look at their lives and how they might have seen something in and out, the circumference of coming in to and out changes to the point of not just spirit. You create a spiral connection. And so you find your spiral connection through the universe, the omniverse, the cosmic, the galactic. And I give thanks to that. Respect. Shay.
And and I was on Bright Emancipation movie. Was asked to share review of the movie Avatar 2. So I had spoken with my brother Buddha Eternal El Bay, who is revelation
Got it. Hearing. You still there, sister?
on the Avatar
Oh my.
2.
It's going in and out. Enough, phone. I see. Respect. There's this view about Avatar um, that we've been looking at in our livelihoods. Uh, we call it the Gargantuous type, the giants, the big monumental uh, energies that we see, that we look at. They become like a point. Why do we have blue as a hue energy? Why do we have the connection of blue even connected to being black? And why the connection of blue, black, and green? You know, these are the basic three color zones or color tone that was created out of we seeing the symbolic connection that we say about Tahuti. Tahuti is a symbol, or the word we call it the word Thoth or Tot. We're taught a lot of things, but when we look at, you know, the feather represents Ma'at. So when one has a feather, they're weighing their heart. And so just like in the formats that was thrown out there, just like here, we're looking at how you can create a different type of person. And in the avenue of a person, you can make an avatar or a surrogate. And so these words in the connotation has a denotation, and it'll change the, you know, just basically the narration or the narrative of how the monotone towards a music or even a movie shows this as the gratitude or not being the gratitude that we're looking at. So it goes from the nine as enaz, or the skin, as being ether. And so as one who gives birth, these are the nine births that was created on the earth. And so you're looking at different types of color zones, variations that come into even the name play or the sound play. And so this is why you'll find out that the characters that we wouldn't know, you know, from the blue, like I was saying, it could be a lodged or dislodged energy. And so how do one use it, how do one see it, is by shapes. So as you saw the 5 and you saw the 6, that's the 5 shape and the 6 shape. So you would know that the mother is the physical, like a lion or a lioness on the earth, but you know, it also represents the wings as being a phoenix. So you're seeing this too as being like an avatar, you know, and being able to give birth as a guardian. So it was replicas that was constantly played, and you see it from the Sheops or even in Revelations, how they kept explaining it's like a 2 version being coming into existence, and everybody need to pay attention to it. And it'd be like, oh, I'm not paying attention to it. Well, when we call Cheops or Sheops, that represents the triangle. So it always been this, as just like the people of the land. You'll see the Polynesian. When you think of poly, see when I know a lot of people say, oh, I like poly, we got to still remind ourselves that word wasn't supposed to be just here in America. This word that was put all around America. So this as being the connection of just like Avatar, there was different nationalities around here. And so we've been bridged, and they're showing that in Avatar. And that's a very important, you can catch it if only you was really, you know, paying attention to your real true roots of who you are and who you are, by not just land, the location that came from that land. So it's not just the timeline that they're putting either. So if you could look at that, you know, in the movie, they're not really showing you a timeline, but they are talking to you like about the Pandora. That's where you get this word right here, the word Maori, and you get the converted connection. You know what I'm saying? So if you knew about Moors, you're going to find out the word Moors is through a lot of words that we already know about. We just didn't know what that word was because we weren't looking at it like that. We wasn't looking like somebody respected you, let's say about in the 1700s. And then come the 1800s and say, oh, wait a minute, if we keep saying that we respect you, we gotta, you know what I mean? Like, we're gonna lose out. So it became wordplay. I can't really see. Okay, there we go. And you see right here, this is just like when we say the word Filipino. You know, this is where the Berenstain and the Samoan connection, Berenstain Bears, where we see nameplay and the switch up to what we call Polynesians, and then how it became Filipinos. You know, so when we say islanders, this how that also, and then the Asian being from a mainland. Then you see jade. Jade is green as the color. So when we even think about green as the color, we also go from Kemet, and you can think about green when we talk about Imhotep, or we talk about Asar, you know, because that's like coming from an afterlife aspect. So these are how we found out that we have. If you look at Imhotep, he has slant eyes, so you can see that he looks like, you know, something that maybe say if we were coming out of the water, you know, aspect, and then his body's embodied at the bottom. So it's like you don't see his legs separated. It could be his legs together, even though you see both legs. So this is why these names, just like when we think of Disney, they come up with these words and put it right back in front of us. And then this is how the diversity is being played back in front of us. And we wouldn't know it because we're looking at words, but not looking at who we are in those words. So as to say the word Jasmine, you would probably call your daughter Jasmine. You just didn't know the stronger connection towards it. That's what makes it more of like a fairy tale. But it's really the genre that's based on your root, and everyone has a root. So even if you said, you know, I'm gonna give my child this name, I don't know why I gave this child this name. You do have a root to it. You're gonna figure it out later on. And then you'll be like, oh, that's why it makes it more in tune with it while I'm doing this. So just like we were speaking about the Islanders, that's why these are another side of ourselves. We don't see ourselves so closely rooted that it made it a point where if you thought that you saw somebody from another continent, because we never talk about the Pacific, we talk about Atlantic all the time. So if you knew that we were so deeply rooted by them, would you separate us because we're connected to you? Like if you look at me, you think I'm from where? Where do you think I'm from?
Where do we think he's from, y'all? Just looking at him. Where would we say he's from?
And when it comes down to it, you'll find out the reality is we go so far the distance. And just like Malcolm X said, if you put, you know, a cat in the oven and a cat have babies, do we call them babies what, muffins, or do we call them kittens? You know, that's the idea. Here's the Mila, and the ma knowing ma like moo, Malaysia, Malaysia, all this Malaysia, minor, and major, minor, Asia. There's a lot of this part that, you know, it gets deeper, but you find out that when we talk about Avatar, we're hearing our people. And if you separating them, then of course you wouldn't see it, because you're talking about Australians right there in that word. I don't know if you saw it, but they put the Australian word in there right here. And like right before we go into maritime, you're gonna give me Australia in there with the word Asia.
Okay. Looks like someone says, looks like you would be from Central America, maybe South Africa.
Now, because it's an origin, my face could be from there, right? And yet I was originally created at the time frame 1975 in Germany. So originally no one would even say Germany. So that kind of like throws Germany right on out the box. All right, so you see the idea of when there's community being based, this is how they were like accepting or not accepting what they see rarely. So would it be welcomed in the community? And we as people, will we go, to move away from our own to go to where we're not accepted? And that's how you're starting to see this in a reversal when it came down to the, because we had a human. This is where they put it at. It was like so reversal in Avatar. I was like, how are they putting a human with the Avatar? Okay, whatever. So they put this human in with the Avatar. It's like his name is Spider. I was like, they gonna give his name Spider? Are you serious? I had a brethren named Spider. Tall, melanated, dark, like melanated, blackety, blackety, black. Blue. So me seeing this from Avatar, I was like, yo, we got people that they're like putting a mockery towards us, and that's when it's like we got to know that we're a part of this. I'm not saying that I'm mad that Avatar got out. What I'm liking about the fact that it's out, it helps you see yourself, and if you could do that better with these movies, that's why it's worth going to go see it. And you're putting in energy anyway, cash flow, whatever you're doing to see it. So you're investing your time in it, you might as well go ahead. So when you see letters as they're changing up language, these are the letters also. And if you look at our letters, we have letters that already are familiar with us because these words are familiar to every other letter. And once you start to look at them more deeper, this phonetics that we're speaking through, like they were saying, they're speaking of a different language. And I'm like, okay, well, this is how we also been speaking of a different language within this language right here that we're speaking through right very now. you know, so it becomes a point where how did you find out that you're speaking Latin? How did you find out that you were speaking Greek? How did you find out that this also has India as the connection to Hindu language? So you got alpha beta. That's why I went from alphabets, A to Z, AZ. So Aztec. So this is where these words are coming from. And then here's this blue marble. See, when we're in 1975, baby, we actually see blue marble, comic books, things like that, that we're like, oh, I'm waiting for it to come out. But they're not going to put this one out because if you look at it, it started before all the other Marvel came out. And when we saw Marvel came out, they put a woman out. And there's nothing wrong with that. Say again.
I was just realizing what you were saying. Go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that because that's what they were supposed to do. It's just that they never put the blue marble for us as a man. So they still like kind of like, I'm gonna put something out, but I ain't gonna let you see the other part. So what I'm doing right here in this was letting you see that this was also how they made a black blue man. So they were saying he was Blue Marvel and he was the person that took out Thanos. So that's why I was like, oh, this kind of different. The way they switched the whole thing up, have a Captain Marvel, take out Thanos. And I was like, oh, okay, that's different. And then it's the same, the voice of, what is he, Bruce Willis or something? It was one of the actors that I know so much, and it's like his voice is so strong, and this character is like a man, and and it messes with your mind when you're seeing movies like that because you're putting this same being in that other being. So there's already Avatar in at the same time when we talking about, movies that's on the side. Now, this again, where we are seeing the urban connection to ourselves, and they make the word Nigress. So Nigress, like tigress, the word tigress, or Nigeria or Niger. Nigress was this now new word, but it's from Latin. And so just like Dr. Alim El Bey, Asir Dukateers, definitely a brother who's dropping it right now. These are the pioneers that I just go back and forth on and just be like getting major jewels off of to say, okay, well, this is how it's still being showed to me that they're showing us avatars as the indigenous people, yet they're also showing us Aboriginal being included. So this right here, you're seeing that when it came down to the invasion, that's where the name play. like we were just doing, in the letters as far as a sound from Naga. You hear the word Naga and you see it says Indian or Nubian people. So when we heard the word Naga, a lot of us start to say, oh, I'm not part of that when the word became nigger. So there's different ways that the word from Roman to the Europes, when we say Europe, we also say Yoruba. So it's from Yoruba to Europa. So that's how that even got changed. That where if you got people that's sitting there so long, they could just, distort it and change it all the way. It's all right that it's right here. It's just the fact that they could just start turning it. That's the Rubik's Cube to how things are being changed upside down, flip side, right, left side, in, and it makes it, that's why this NG or Angola, when you hear the word Angola, you hear the word Angola. And so Angola or Angle, that is the phonetic change. And this happened in the 1600s. So to change the word before it was a king concept, because in king, this is a sound and a vibration, not just a vibration, a vibration that we use when we're using the G. This G that came from Germany is the G of good. So you say good like God. And that's how these are the forms of these avatarian people, but they're not doing the avatarian thing. That's why you don't see them eating. You don't see them doing intimacy. This whole avatar was like, what kind of avatar is these people? Like, they supposed to be loving stuff, but they got things working for them. Like
Yeah, I
that,
was
that
wondering when
almost,
they was gonna be eating,
yeah, yeah.
especially when they went to see the sea people, and then the sea people were like mocking them or making fun of them not having their tails, and they're like, "Oh, you won't make it around here. You like a baby." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what do they need their tails for?" Or in everyday life and underwater, I mean, do y'all hunt down there for y'all food or what? That was one of my questions.
All right, so you getting a split of one on land and one in the water. So you're getting the actual idea of how you're saying the amphibian. You're getting the actual idea of the Sagittarius that came from what we know as the 9 month, because you put nine, right? Nine represents just like in our Kemetic term, we would say it from Sekhmet. Sekhmet will create Ra. So Ra is now on the land, and now Ra becomes Haru and is a little baby. So that from little baby on up. But what they did was they tried to do it with a trigonometry and put us with four finger concept. So this where it became the humanoid connection to like Genesis, where we speak on, let us go and make he, she, them. And so now we make gods or demiurge gods into this land. So this is why you get these lands right here from NASA or NASA or Naja, or what we say, NASA being Nico or Naka, Nike. All that's the same. Nika. They're a plate of the firmament that's showing us our in and out of what we look at 9 levels or 10. The 10 represents the firmament coming out of it after you come into it, then out of it. So there's different ways that you could see the land as being flat, or whether that is round versus just a circle. Because what we're seeing from our eye, just think of our eye. Our eye is not a full 360, is it? Is your eye a full 360?
No.
It would be like kind of more than a 360 because it's an oval type shape. So just like how we see the land, how do we not see the land from our oval eyes, like the way we see it through the eye? So that's perception, right? If I put this in front of you, right, you see this as a complete circle. That's because it's man-made.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to put something that's not man-made, would it be like this? There's the deception. And so we'll
Okay.
have to be able to see those things, just like in movies. They'll put a spiral in and they try to show you, this is nature, but then it's like, wait a minute, this is artificial nature. So like that is starting not to make any sense. So you starting to see a lot of our culture that was right in front of you. like the brother that was green, he looked like the Hulk, but he looked like a brother. Then you can see his nose, and I'm like, man, this is some deeper. You're seeing the different Lemurians and the Atlanteans, and we're not talking about that yet. We're getting to see it from a AI point of view, while they're still using our cultural bodies to show these features in the golden ratio. Because when we look all the way around, we all the way to Polyasian to they were just saying Central America, where I'm going to be at. I'm in the center of America. If I go right into the center of America, I'll have a bunch of me's over there. And you'll be like, how in the what? This is real? No, that's what it is. So just like in our teachings, we got to find out the unconditional love that we can overcome into the fear that we always run into, because we really find courage. And if you can realize that's not the control thing, is how to let go is what you have to control. The let go part, not to hold on to it. And that's what you saw through the avatar. They were doing a lot of those experiences that you're like, oh, this is what they're working on. You know, meditation, things like that. And I was like, oh, then we're talking about breathing and then underwater. So that was like, oh, that was deep, you know? So they're hitting you with, okay, since you're on the land, I'm going to talk to y'all like I need to talk to y'all. And so these are where, go ahead, that 1970s, the Waldos. If you remember where's Waldo, that's what this became, you know. So this 1920s to 1970s, there was a different way of looking at the high moment. So when we said 420, this became that connection.
Okay.
And so when they were doing these inner outer experiences, they were finding out not just through the MK Ultra, they was also finding out beyond the MK Ultra, because MK Ultra was the synthetic. If they were to find beyond the synthetic, that's why they were actually creating religions. Religions became something that stopped them. So when they were connecting to the tree a lot, you kept seeing them connect to the tree, and I was like, look at them, they connecting to the tree. Like, this is right in your face. Like, what are you doing? Okay, we talking. So there's more to it.
It says it also has something to do with Hitler's birthday.
Yeah, well, you know, there's that other connection. There's what they'll put in to make it for their own agenda. Like if you have a way to martyr something, you'll create something bigger on top of it, so that you'll be the one taking it in on that energy at that particular time. So it made it people thinking that this was something else that they were creating. Because if you look at it, did you ever see Hitler being a melanated Hitler versus the actual, you know, one they showed us?
I haven't never seen one, but I've thought of it.
Because they showed us like how they kept doing everything from the past and kept reflipping it, but it was in reverse. And so if you was to ever think that way, couldn't there actually been one? And then they show us nothing but the propaganda Tom, because it's like, how you out here this much and nobody got you? You know what I'm saying? Like, but if you maybe staged it during that whole time, I ain't see you kill nobody while you had the camera on you and everything. I just seen you like, oh, do the acting. All right, they're doing the act, and you never know. You know what I mean? And so if it was back in the day when I knew about Hitler, he was always loving to hear a stage or an act, and he ended up, you know, getting with a blonde hair, blue eyed. And I was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. I said, who is this brother? I mean, is he a brother? You know, and even for me, you know, I'm from Germany. So like I said, you wouldn't even think I'm from there. So there's these other parts that you're seeing, even as James, is that his name? I think his name is James, being put in this movie to play as this, you know, infiltrator. And then now he's all of a sudden, he cool with everybody. And now he get to have a baby. And then I'm like, oh, he get to have a baby. Oh, this is deep. And the way it goes, look at the lineage, they can only do it in a 13 aspect. So the 13 represented this part where 12 of Nut into the 13 zodiac or the moon cycle of how it really does work down from the hips and come back out. Now, when we say from the hips and come back out, we know Capricorn is where the kneecaps are at. So from the kneecaps is the actual ejection to the 10, right? To 11 is the Aquarius or ankles. So that's why this was known as the split, or the one who can now swim. So when you can swim, it was through your ankles, just like how they put in the Panthers, they put the wings on my brethren as merman. And I was like,
Yes.
yo, they're getting back the mer on there. So they're showing you
Yeah.
merman but yet with the Aquarian energy. So now they're showing you Aquarius symbol and they still hitting you with the feather of my eye. So that's near the feet. And so when we go to the feet represents I believe. And so when you connect to I believe, it's be and lie of Eve. But when you check this out right here, go back right second. That was I was getting to. Sagittarius is the hips. So you seek it, right? And then this is the mantras. So I seek it, I use it, I know it, now I believe it. That's how this became the four, a beginning of like, dang, why did this sound like a mean energy? Because this starts where the Sagittarius is the Saturn energy. And so from Saturn changing the energy from how the sun be working, because that's the last sun. If you use the first sun, we talking about Aries. If you're using the middle sun, we talking about, Leo. But this is the last fire sign. So this is like saying, this is where we get our coldest season, right? Or this is where we get our biggest struggles. This is where we get our whatever heartaches, the in and out of realities. And so this is the same thing as what we're finding out by the avatars. Because when we're finding out, they was really like moving fast and running. They weren't really slowing down on a lot of nothing. No. Not in the beginning. They were running. It was all over the place. I was like, dang, they are a little bit of rambunctious. Oh, wait a minute. And they do have a tail. Oh, this is some old Goku stuff over here, and it helped me tap into that too, because, that's where the baboon aspect come from. And so, from Virgo, that's your actual stomach. And so from Cancer, that's where your actual chest will be at. All these are body parts. And so Leo, where's your heart is at. Scorpio will be where your groin is at. So now this is why that 13 was important, because that's how they came up with Ophiuchus right in between. And they say it's not a part of the zodiac, yet this is how you connect to your whole body. So why would it not be a part of your zodiac? See, that's why it makes it this connection to you. So those who say I'm not into the 12 zodiacs, that's cool. You ain't got to utilize it, but you're utilizing it on 12 measurements and things like that. So, or even this 12-month moon, 12 months versus the 13 moons. So now you are a part of your own lie as you're lying in it with the 9 months of birth, right? You say every 9 months is your birth, or you say every 12 months is your birth. See how you got caught into that? And this is how our mother will be mad at you because you lie. And then yet she didn't know she lied to you, yet you keep on the lie. So now you didn't find out how to catch up to the truth yet. And you've been doing this for the longest. While you watching movies, all these other things. Oh, my birthday. I want everybody to turn up for me. Oh, I feel sick. Let me go throw up. Oh, man, what am I doing? I'll never do that again. Well, it's decalcifying your brain and your pineal gland. So now you're getting older. You're getting the bags. You're getting the raccoon eyes. That's how it ended up being, raccoon eyes. That's why I ended up using the black mascara. If you find out, there's a lot of the depression that we wanted to alleviate, but we didn't know how to. So what the movie is doing to you and us, they're showing us the interaction to how nature and nurturing with nature, and how the animals start to interact at a better, reciprocal, where we'll find out that even the animals are like how my brethren was breaking it down to me. He was like, if you realize the animals are getting smarter, they're not like how they used to be, where they get dumb and get hit by every car every few seconds. Someone actually just making a move and doing different things, and even when the camera's on them, they doing different things we don't know about. So just like how we look at our gods, this is where this name right here became a part of whoever we were to be looked at in a tribe. There's this inner outer God of everyone. And when we find out how the past or the life that most people run through, that's what they were doing in the movie. They started it right in the beginning, showing you like someone in a passing so that they could start you knowing from passing the beginning and beginning to not passing anymore. Yet it was like getting the eternal aspect from a tree that's a firmament that's coming from one area. And then after they had to travel through it, because not only did one person die, he ended up being the avatar, but through the humans created symbiotic clone. So now they got two types of avatars running amongst, like how they weren't ever showing this before through us. So we got surrogate and avatar as the aspect. So this is where we're getting, like this is showing you the energies, how we create solar versus lunar. And a lot of us created sonar energy while some of us created lunar energy. And if you notice how the home or whatever we're doing in our establishment, we start putting certain type of crystals or certain type of geodes that's going to create that same aspect. That's why they were seeing, butterflies or whatever flying, and then all of a sudden they could put it on them, and they start flying too, and they attached it to them. Like, oh, they get to do actual superpower stuff. It's like, oh man, we about to be there. You're like, oh, we next. So you get the 13 is the representation of the nature. So Mami Wata, just like how we had Ptah represented, the man. We also had Sekhmet, but Sekhmet also looked like Yamaya when it came down to the hair. So the hair is like the light or the sun and the sunlight, but also to get to the moonlight. And so she represented both. And this, like Yamaya, she actually sitting right there like Starbucks. And there's so many people who might not know they're running into their 13th zodiac. And that's the 13th zodiac. So your 13th zodiac is not new to you. It's already been in front of you. You just didn't know what you were looking at. And it's showing you the higher part of the water and the darker part of the water. So now you're seeing, just like how it was showing in the Avatar, you're seeing your two nations put together. And so whenever you saw like red and white, that was the Nile being the west and the east now being merged together. So we was able to see Olokun, as they say, the dark, deeper part of the water, to the top, Yamaya. Oh, and this is how, it got into it, where it got deeper, because, no matter our science of what we're going through, that 13th zodiac happens to be like, some people want to make it a curse. So they'll have stuff like this, where these brothers, they went in Starbucks and they actually got, harassed and things like that, arrested.
I saw this story. They was there for a business meeting, and the people asked them to leave out. They thought they were loitering. My bad, y'all. They thought they were loitering, and they were actually waiting for someone that was to join them in the meeting. And then they called the police on them because they wouldn't move. They was there for a meeting. And they end up apologizing and some other stuff, but they had already done the damage at that point.
And when you look at your value of what you do in your moment, it's you that's the utmost of what you stand for. And because that just became another mark to see, realizing that this plateau of the green, the woman up here with the crown and everything, is like our Wonder Woman. And so for us to go into the nest or the bee's hive and not be able to, be like a worker amongst everybody else, it gets like the replica of how this starts to show. And so we got Philadelphia as one of those places that, even for myself, I went to and not realize where I was at. But, it makes it a point where you start to see where centralization is a major thing. Like when we're starting to say that we're using generic ways to illustrate us, we're now being part of this technology, just like we would call it, an avatar thing. So that's why it's important to look at these things. Don't get mad. Just learn the strategy behind it So that way, when it comes to you, you know how to react better versus just like, you know, because it was showing us in the movie the whole time. Breathe under the water. Like, you under the water, how you gonna breathe? I gotta breathe longer. I can't just be out of breath and then like, oh shoot, I gotta let go of this thing. This thing pulling me on. I gotta either I let go, I'm gonna pass off. You know, and this right here, big time. Yeah, this is big. You know, from the being out there and you in somebody else's foundation, and it makes it a point where they create a condition to you when really your sign is right there above your head. You just wouldn't know it. So how do we demonstrate ourselves is not by being a demonstrate. We are an interstate. So we're like the interstate, basically. So when it's about intersection and all of that connection to self, we apply it when we see it like an apple. If you bit it, you know where it came from originally, from the tree. So every tree has a root. Not just a root, it's the fungus side too. So it's not you get the sweet side, you also get the salt. And this where we see like in our time frame, what was this about from the governors, from Ali and the Bays, because these names are changed from Bay to Day. Day is a land, like Dios, Indios, Indian. So the words are at that time a part of where this British brigade started. And so if you look at how they were coming in, they was doing a lot of, I don't know, what kind of year is this they're talking in? You know, it makes you wonder, is this the Ottoman War? You know, or is it before that? You know, and it can't be before that. So it has to be the Ottoman War. We're in that time frame where we're seeing who is talking about who and how long they've been talking about this for a minute in your face. And I don't know if you get verbatim, but it's like, dang, I'm starting to feel something. Get off of me, Papa. Who's that touching me? You know, and the ancestors want to talk through you. Now they're like, hey, look, you don't see it, I'm gonna push you into it, you know. And we're starting to see from the Portuguese, there's a lot of resistance that started to when we saw Africans as the name Africans, you know, and then this is how we start saying we're separated, because we started with words, yet it's the how we started with it. We started separating the land. Once we knew how the land got separated, there's this book that I got right here. It's called Scramble to Africa. The Scramble for Africa, 1876, 1912. Now, this was written by Thomas Pakenham. And the year is 1991. Yet it was written through 1888 on a voyage that was going all the way to 1933. So they were going in Africa, taking up stuff. As you're reading the timeline line up there, it's taking up the stuff that you would think that, you know, from them start wearing the fez, you know, here, right here, to then even the turbans that they also put in the pictures. Now, if you notice that that's where, just like the Avatar, they weren't gonna put any hats on in there, because if they did that, it would have explained a lot of things. It would have went too far to where we start to see where we're at in the lineage, and that's not what they wanted to do, you know, because that's a movie for where they get to show themselves doing a lot of the good and the in between. And oh, I messed up, but I get to rechange it. You look at this right here. This is one of my favorite pictures, even though, you know, it's not how I'm saying it being favorite. Because people say, well, why are you talking about favorite? You see my brethren in the middle, right? This brethren in the middle, I don't know how many times I looked at this and cried at the first time, you know, because I see how we militant, we bullies, you know what I'm saying? And this is how you can see the militant military. And if you look at my brethren in the middle of this situation, and he don't have, you know, the headpiece wrap or nothing. So this is like being conquered. So when you think of militia or military, they basically take you off from your head to your feet, and now like take away your culture. And so for him, he's to me like a, you know, indigenous in the beginning. And you start to see closer, you see that it's not just that he got Ndinkra symbols on him. So it's not as old as we think it is. It's really, you know, close to our time frame. We just don't know it. And so when we say, oh, they got defeated at a certain time, we got to really look at the pictures, and you see where the fez got put on, but it's not the same fez. This is the flat turban. I mean, the flat fez. It's not even the tarbush. They call it the tarbush. It's different. And then you got the character over here. They call him Cook, Captain Cook over here, this character. But you see him with the hat. So always put the big hat or the, you know, the jungle hat type look, the safari type hat. He's in here like a couple more times. Yet it's the expression to how to, you know, they really start to depict their own way of changing history. You know, this is like a battle, but you see in the battle all the way down to where they even took a picture, right, and put a real brother in it. His name is Menelik. I don't know if anybody knows too much about the history, but Menelik, he was the one that was right. You know about Hannibal the Great with the mighty Alps elephants. Well, he's another character that actually was doing the same thing with the elephants. So they was breaking down Britain. So we talking about the same time frame, but they want to merge everything and then take a lot of the what was really happening out and put it in the movie and start to make it. Oh, this is some fictition. It's like, oh, what we doing in there? How was it going down? When you look at my brethren, like I was showing you in the beginning, this brother here, you can see he looked like a monk or a Buddha. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I cried several times while looking at this, knowing that eventually somebody gonna show this, and it did. It finally came out in Hidden Colors. I think probably like the last one they did. I was like, finally they showing this picture, because I had this book for a minute, and even though it's 1991 in the book, you know, it was just things I was looking at and finding in this book, just like how we look at avatars. We want somebody to be big and doing all the big stuff and jumping and being the Gilgamesh and doing what they're supposed to be. But yet, as the Goliath, because David and Goliath, there was one who was too big and then they had to fall. And that's what they're making it seem like, that they took the races out in there while, you know, it's like a hippie type generation. You know, and you look at it, the hippie generation was a 1970s thing. So from 1970s, switching the decade, 100 years, 1870, 1860, that's where I would think of how, if it was me making a movie, this is the stuff that it would be like a soft porn to it. This is Captain Cook again. And now you get to see him in action. He got his brother here. And, you know, you can see his face. He's more like a French character with the little mustache. That's why I always saw, like, when they put Adolf Hitler up there, he looked like he was too staged for me with the, you know, the Charlie Chaplin look. But, yeah, so the chain, things like that, all up on here on the brother and on my other brother. And that, yeah, at the same time, he don't have a chain on him. So you can see that he's living for the house concept. So we're saying the house and we got the field aspect. But you can see my brother here on the higher royalty. Look at his headpiece. It's just things that we have to really pay attention to when we're looking at the picture. See, more like the culture versus the stage. Because see, when the stage, you see the faces not being, you know, if it's real, you can see what's real. And that's how you see both. And so just like Avatar, they kind of showed a lot of avatars with these marks, like my brethren up here. See the marks. I don't know if he was paying attention, but you can see them. Wait, let me get rid of it closer. I know it's like the lighting. But if you can see it, just like how you can see my brethren on Black Panther as well. So this is some real stuff. We won't like no soft cats, but they got us looking soft in a lot of these movies, and then we don't even look like we're in the movie. But yet, when we saw the characters that was coming out of the water, the more green, you can see, like I said, there's a little brother in there, look like a brother, right next to him. He was doing the teasing the most. It's another picture of my brother. Look at him. He more. Oh, let me see. more poly-Asian than anything. You know what I mean? But you're seeing them. Got the top hat. See how they flatten the hat? This was important for them back then. So when they put Emancipation out, notice, go back in the movie again and watch how they got everybody with beards and mustaches. That's how you know they were taking it over. Because they had to do like Menelik, but be better than Menelik. They got to be like Hannibal, better than Hannibal. So they had to be like, I got to be better than the man I know. And that's where the problems rely at. How much do we really see of ourselves being, you know, because it gets to a point where we know we're getting tricked. Somebody tricking up on something. And so that's where you get the Sahad dynasty and the things of that nature, the Armenia. You know, if we really look at the language, how much did they change to Armin to take the R and Amen nameplate? It's getting to a point. It's getting to a point. Be like, I don't know if you paid attention. This stuff's real stuff here. The science is coming real now. And if we don't, is the real reenactment towards how we're letting the things unfold in front of us, and we're saying, I didn't know. Well, that's what they say as the desecration. Because when you talk about Old Testament, they was doing a lot of wanting to sacrifice humans. And then they go from wanting to sacrifice humans to then the lesser, let's go sacrifice animals. We're going to still do some sacrificing. Yet, this is where the bull and the by the bull, you know, we go by the bull, is two. It's a blue and a red. And so this is what you're seeing out of the human, the arteries and the veins, how it's basically, it's all comedically spoken. You're having an inner and outer body experience with these movies like Avatar, to where now you can finally see yourself in the 9 of your body parts talking to each other, and they're all coming off the firmament and they touch the tree so they can, you know, beam back up. Certain time they need a charge. So you'll find out that, like, they was going through it where the doctor, you know, because she didn't really, the way she passed away, for her daughter to know about it, it would be devastating. So she couldn't get the truth. And so that's why they had to, like, not let her touch too much stuff, because it's just like realities for our people now. We're learning that if we touch too much, we find out, oh, I ain't supposed to do that, you know. And just like, let's say if I was doing cocaine, right? I'm not saying I'm doing cocaine. Let's just say I'm selling it, right? And if I'm selling it and I'm just putting my hands on it and I ain't know nothing about it, I'm just going to get in my hands. And then next thing I know, I'm going to be feeling like doing it. But it's already been on me. So I wouldn't know it, yet it's a part of that habit that most of us would jump into so much, that just like we love our people, we love everybody, you know, and you want to save everybody. Like, how though? It's like, that's where your breath comes from. You know, just give them a piece of your mind. Don't, you know what I mean? Don't go too hard in the paint. Just like, you know, giving a couple of dollars is like your charge, your change. And this is why you see, like, this character here. Move it over a little. The Sambo. Now, Sambo is in 1970s. They were finally giving us the real breakdown of Sambo. And you see the word AFR. It was AFRAK. Then it was AFRIK. So with the Berenstein Bear kind of thing, the names got changed. And so this is why we hear Asa, Aza, Aisha, Asiya, Asar, Aset. That name is still the same. So we hear Persia, Persuasion, all that's still connected. You're connected by the Asiatic side to self. So when we think Sambo, which is my father's name, Sam, it was a Sami. And so Sami, my sister's name is Sammy. She likes to have that as her name. So we'll find out that we're Buddhists or Buddhas. And since 1970s, just like the hippies, that was the era for the music, the time frame. So what was kind of missing was the music in the Avatar. So I was like, okay, I see where they're going. They don't want us to still get deeper but yet they were playing it. It just was kind of like, it was a weird way they was doing it. So I was like, all right, I'll let them do what they're doing, because it ain't us doing the movie, it's them. So they want to express as much as possible to where they're enjoying life, just that they're doing it in a very lucrative potato salad with mayonnaise. No, potato salad missing the mayonnaise, ain't no mustard in it. You know, when we go down south, we really up north. And because we don't do that enough, we miss out on the connection. And that's why we basically did those connections like you saw in Avatar, where they finally meet and greet each other and start to do the things that they're supposed to be doing. This is where, just like in what we got? Well, and just like in the word Aztec is as technology. So just through the as technology, you see that in ourselves, your supreme being inside is basically having an outside experience, and it wants to greet its inside just as much as it wants to greet its outside. So your experiences are like looking at realms that you can still feel its highest realm. Like if you say you feel low, look for a high even in your low. And that's just like basically what meditation is about. Not saying that you have to always, somebody pray me to get all right, and don't do it all the time that way. You could do it another way. You can actually portal yourself in. So just like what Seven Bomar, he basically gives you a lot of learning your supreme self. You have a supreme being inside of you that's actually waiting to come out. And so if you haven't been drawing, if you haven't been dancing, if you haven't been feeling your avatar spirit, it's only because you haven't charged it up long enough. And you have to do it to where you burn out. Some of us don't realize what a burnout is. A burnout is like, let's say you run track, right? And you ran track, and you know the experience. So this is what I can say to it. You'll start running and you start to feel like you're about to lose wind. The next thing you know, you're like, I'm not going to give up. I want to just keep on going. So then you get in this extra wind that you never knew came from out of nowhere. And then you're like, oh, shoot, I can go a little longer. And so with that mist of you going a little longer, that's the avatar right there that you have in yourself. And so if you're able to probe that out longer on certain things that you do for yourself, it's like basically saying going the extra mile or going the extra minute or going the extra whatever that is you're doing. You'll find out that this is how that becomes that. And when it became that so strong, this is why the labels, like how you're seeing now, are put to where you see Mer or More or Maureen, see the word MOH and REN, Ren or renew, represents a renewing yourself. So what would you have yourself do? Drink alcohol before the end of the new year? End of the end year and then beginning the new year? This is how it changed the dynamics. And we think of Alegba. Alegba is red, white, and black. So when we think of these colors, there was something that we wouldn't see that as a crossroad. So the red and white was really the east and west now, but we're crossing into the other side of alchemy. When we think of blue, blue is because of the yellow and the green. So if you think of yellow and green, it changes that dynamic. Instead, they made more of a, let's flip the script. And so making ice cream and then having the ice cream in the representation of what the Moors were really, the avatars were really looking like. And I was like, look at the avatar looking like, wait a minute. And then they had big feet, and yet, they're also showing you short people. So there was no way that they could show you short people unless they showed you from their child point of view first. And then they could show you short people or small people, because it's still a different generation because they wanted to say it from their point of view, they had to downsize everything but make it in their own upgrading size. So that way, when they start making about the small people, you'll still want to joke them. So what they do is put, a human so-called in the middle of it. And I was like, yo, that's what they're doing. They were flipping the script So you still not like it, but then here it is, you having your Rudy child being put in. The Rudy child would be the albino. So it's like, oh, and then so you start to see him playing as this navigator, you know, Christopher Columbus type thing, and he's like, they're over there, and then he's like, this is their language, and you know, then he said, you gonna really fight them like that, and, you know, and he's like really giving them pointers, yet it's because he's connected to the father that supposedly died in the last one, and now he's an actual human that's now helping out the avatars in the actual, you know, supposed to be the dreamlike Pandora box. So this is how you see this right here, where the surrogate, we're created to become so-called surrogates for these people. And it's like, nah, we're not, we're the avatar. Yet you gotta remember toy soldier, things like that. When you think of what is it, what's that joint? Oh, it's a cartoon. Johnny Quest.
Johnny Quest.
Yeah. You see this right here. And so this is the same shoes that they also put in mockery for Abraham Lincoln. But Abraham Lincoln represented the only one who had basically some kind of hair on the face, just like we were talking about emancipation, the emancipation movement. So you're seeing how they want to, you know, put us in servitude for the nation of people versus we were the service and people wanted that, you know, because we could provide service. That's what tradesmen do. It's a little different. So now it's like Motisa, we part of the Motisa tribe. No, that's not how it go. And this is where you can see the bridgery or the idea of the build in our character was the, you know, it was kind of like of a letdown to see the Aladdins, things of Peru, the Portuguese, the whole connection of see the baggy pants, like, you know, MC Hammer. These are really our still reality of our culture. We just got it so widespread that we'll put mockery towards it because we act like it's not ours and we're not connected to it. So when you start seeing Avatar, it went from them having clothes to now they look like savages that, you know, that just like how they would call Indians. The Indians are created to be called savages. So they'll say wild. Yet they were showing just like in there, like the Trail of Tears, how they pushed them out of this land and now they got to go over there. Yet that's showing how as if they didn't have no strength and they had to run. So this is where they get this word tyranny from. You know, this book right here, Aztec, this book goes deep because they talk about Don Carlos. And when they talk about Don Carlos, you hear the word Don Juan. And so Don Juan is the whole connection to this whole midsection we missing, you know, Central America. You know what I mean? So if we look at how it's being explained, Olmec is not really being connected to none of this stuff, even though it's like a part of everything that's going on. That's how you find out about Buddha, the rubberhead people, which they brought the rubber from one area to another. Now, if we still using rubber to this day, which we now use it as plastic, how do we not know it? But now it's being ruled by everyone else, yet the people that created it. This is the replay into the tree. This is the replay in the firmament. Like we've forgotten how we were like at our utmost, and now we're like, I need to get some platinum and put it in my teeth. Like what? This is what you're gonna do when you get it? Oh, okay. All right. Well, enjoy. Well, this is where you see like the disconnection is from the continent. There's maybe a continent shift, but in that same point of this so-called continent shift, the Panama, the folklore, that concept, how do we don't see the old Mecca? Because it's called Old Mecca County. And that county or country became the misconnection. Because when we think continent and country, that's two different aspects. When you get Asia, Africa as a country, it's supposed to be like a lot of water, but then that's an island. So now it does misconstrue where we're having our connections to. And because this have Lord as a name, that was created on people in their name, they were saying somebody of royalty. This had to be a royalty thing. This couldn't be like just somebody just not popped up, I mean, from out of nowhere. And it's written in 1980, so it's still in the same genre time frame, yet they were calling it Mexica, not Mexico. So the change of the Night of the Eagle order was what was put out. If there's this movie, if anybody can pay attention to that, it's called Maya and the Three. They actually showed up Olmec's head in there, which was deep. I was like, yo, they going in. This is that time that you can really now catch some real true avenue things that's being put in front of us, from, you know, even the pottery to the science, you know, whether it's the eagle and the snake, you know, that's another connection, you know. And this is what they were putting from the actual animal they put in front of us, that seemed like you're using your hair as a snake, and then then you flying something that looks like an eagle, and you got to tame it. And it was all of that was going on. It's like, it's happening so fast, you know. The things about movies is it's happening so fast, you ain't got time to say, well, I gotta slow it down so I can figure out what happened. and if you have a DVD, you could be like, okay, let me pause it. Oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, now let's go ahead and keep it going. And, you know, and that's how you start to realize, because, you know, like we were saying earlier, they don't gonna give you but so much. They ain't gonna show you where they taking a dump at. They're not gonna show you how to get rid of their dump. What if somebody find it? Did they step in it? You know, things that we would know in our own reality. Be like, wait a minute, did they use the bathroom or not? I ain't never seen them use the bathroom. What happened when they get sick? You know. And there was the other reality that was kicking in for me was when do they have a new child? You know, and it was saying every 13 years. So I said, oh, they're good at 13. So they're gonna play with us with a 13, but put it in the movie, so you don't know what they're talking about, but they talking about your stuff. Yeah, they might say 13 years, but it's still saying 13. And so there's these things that, you know, because they know that there's this what we call tricknology. You could put the knowledge on something and it seems like it's a trick. And so here we got Mr. Popo, which we know from Dragon Ball Z, having that same, you know, because it was about royalty. A lot of the avatars you can see is about royalty and loyalty. So to have something like what's behind him is like the firmament tree. And back there, you can go into hyperbolic chamber, and there's things that you can get a year in a day, and learn yourself. So this is what we were talking about, going into that other realm. And what is that? You know, could be the mycelium, you know, could be the ayahuasca. I'm not gonna go that deep with it, but it's those things that help from the shaman aspect. Why would you learn from Buddhas? Why would you learn these things? That even that told that they were talking about from Mike Tyson, that there's things that will say, oh wow, I didn't know you could actually have an afterlife while you're still here. This is Rama, RMA. And now they have DC as like BC. So when you think of birth of Christ, the birth of Christ, the destruction of Christ is right here, where they're showing a demonstration of Christ as a demon, but yet not a demon, a demonstration. So he's showing himself heroic. So they're doing heroes, and now they're coming from different genres. This is India, which the first like Popo, just like him, there's from the black to the blue. Now, black to blue is already a depiction of saying this. It's an adjective. It's not really a word of it being a noun. So they're giving you people who are in that higher connection as you. They're just not having to say you, and they don't have to. It's only up to you to catch that. So here where we got Black Krishna, the same thing as we seen in, you know, Mario Brothers. And it'll be moving around and you got to jump over it. This is the explanation from, you know, our India to Sicilian. How do we still see the bigger bridge that's amongst us, that we have of all this, that's basically is a big landmass that we still have more exploration to do, to where you're not destroying one another. You get more into learning the revisited aspect versus saying, oh, look at him because he is the African booty scratcher. Who came up with these names? Oh, I don't want to go to Mexico no more. There's a fat policeman at the door. There's so many little nursery rhymes I remember in the back that was like, yo, did they have us say that? So now it's the point that you're saying something in your mantra of your mind so that you wouldn't want to do these things. Because see, when it came down to those mantras, there's I am as Aries. I think, no wait, I have as Taurus. I think as Gemini. Now, what I noticed about Gemini is I think, but it could be thinking a lot. So you got to create I thought. So when thought comes out, you can now do something with it. So I feel would be Cancer. Leo is I will. So just like a will, you could turn it. You got a will, you can write it out. This is why it became the four, because they were saying the human changed to the avatar to now one of them. It had a 5 finger. So now it was explaining how they were like half human. They were like Super Saiyan. They had like, they can't go but Super Saiyan without having their hair come extra. You know what I'm saying? And that meant that it was half human, half, real. No, half super, God form. So it explains the 5 as in being your Melchizedek, your ability to say fire, earth, air, and rain. Fire, earth, air, and rain is fear. Once they get past their fear, is spirit. And once you're in the spirit, it's really connected to your soul, which always been there. So these two basically connect easier than you would want to do it with all of these. Yet this is how you make your etheric connection from ether to your earth to your actual ether, your thumb. That's how that works. So you got grandma and grandfather right there. Your wedding finger, that's your water finger, and then you connect to your air finger. Your fire finger is the middle finger. That's why we stick it at people a lot. We don't even know this is those energies that as far as our expression. It's just like how Avatar was saying, it's not just the hair. It's not just the hair you connecting. Your fingers, your toes, earthening when the sun is up, even when the moon is up, you can find different ways to do it. So this was another way of finding that you're a part of the same movie. It's just that they had to speed it up and give you the shortest version that they could ever give you. And then not only that, flip it around so that you don't see you. And then you're like, oh, I like this movie. It's like, they like the movie. Yeah, let's make another one. So they still don't see what they're doing. But they can't, like, it's just like Pinocchio. They can't show it to you without making up another lie. Yet, while they're making up another lie, they got to show you the truth. So now you're going to see the truth. Yeah. From soul to God self, to higher self, to source. Exactly. And when you see that expression have a micro macro, now you see the outer soul. They call it the oversoul from Seven Bowman. He called it the oversoul. And this is how you end up finding out. Just like in this book, Aztecs, they were given high almighty for the old Olmecs for a minute. So it's not even for Don Carlos, who they were giving admiration for. They'll say it to him, Your Excellency. See, this is how you know terminology got changed. Your Excellency. And then when we know it from Hindu, they say Lord, like we saw up there, it said Krishna, Lord Krishna. So they'll say Lord. It wouldn't say Your Excellency. See how that changed? Just like how we say Your Honor. Now, is it your honor or my honor that's getting destroyed? So this is how you find out how, just like for the black or the blue, like this with my brethren, Captain America, Captain represents 10, the 10th house. There was a star, which is the 5th house, the Melchizedek. And this represents the egg going from black because it was at first white, but it was on blue. So these are the things that we look at, how we say sender, like we'll sender ourselves. So when he came out, it was the same time frame, what was it, a year back or whatever. They were calling the Cold Wars. So we're into learning the Saturnalia or Saturn energy. Now, you don't have to be in Saturnalia, just learn the Saturn energy. That's what they call tough love. So if you notice that they put him out there, they call him a nomad at the time. So this is the comic book they really was showing back then with the nomad colors. And it didn't have just black. It had blue and it had yellow. So now you get an idea. And he was calling it shadows. So there was really them wanting to be us so much that they had to put themselves somewhere in there. Like, this is me, but this ain't me. I don't know how to put me out there, but later on I'm gonna do it. So it was like one of those memos. If you think what memos are, you write it down because you forgot it. And so in case you had to write something quick, it would be a quick jot versus the whole thing. So that's what it ended up being. Like this with the Berenstein to the actual word, Berenstein, to now Berenstain. This is the name plays. And if you can get more in tune with that, you'll find out that, you know, because you might be somebody that came from the 80s. All right. Look at what happened in the 80s. Don't forget where you was at when it happened.
Right.
Once they start saying, oh, this is new, start paying attention, because they're going to start showing you something that was in the 1980s. And you'll be like, wait a minute. Let me look back at that. That is not 19. That is not now. That is 1980s. And so you'll find the replicas, and they'll start to be what we call the Mandela effect, or the Mandala effect. And once you see that, that's just like how you have a natal chart, right? In your natal chart, you have a certain diagram that's like a star, you know what I mean? And this certain star, yeah, right. Saturn rules America, you're right. The certain star changes, right? And once it gets to a certain point, it could be just like your natal chart. And so now, just like how you said Saturn, said Saturn rules, you can actually get a part of that ruling. And that's why you know measurement. Measurement came from the knowing the square, the compass, and not only the square, the compass, but the spade. So they created three, a trinity. And so this is how Luke being Luxor or Luxor, the temple of Luxor, you see the Orion and the Draconian as the constellational change that, you know, you get this from Ashar-Kwesi. You can jump in anybody really, from Dr. Richard King, who breaks it down from the melanin, but it's about Anthony Browder, who gives you the civilization of how this from the dark Vader aspect, dark being a word like dark night, the whole Bethlehem, Bethel, be the ham, turning to a pale. So pale also represents the skin. So not just an actual bucket. That's why when we saw Jack and Jill falling down and the bucket was there, it's not just one way of showing that. It's a couple of ways that you can get this message being put across to you, to where now you see how the pale of a crown, like the woman having a baby, because that's what they put in this movie. They actually showed a real woman who was basically having a baby during this movie. I mean, she was really pregnant. That was a real pregnant woman in the movie. So they were able to put real reality in it. While you could say, is this fake? Oh man, what's going on? Can she have that in her stuff? Wait, she in the water. How's she doing that? You know, so it kind of gets you into that. I'm showing you something that's going to happen. And at the same time, when that baby come out, that baby going to be on some whole high other level. You know, like baby was a part of the act and the action. So this again is the part of mommy water, the waters, how you connect back to the waters, and how you connect back to the waters is through your 8 essential amino acids, and that's what's connecting to your 8 becoming 9. 8 represents, like Buddha represents 7. So when it becomes 8 is like basically coming into the X, and when you come to a masculine and feminine, you curve after a while. So once you curve, it goes back into itself, which is the Zen. And so we knew Zen, just like we say yin and yang, there's a Zen, and the amino acid, instead of just like blood that's coagulate, it messes with your arteries. So the blue, like the blue people, they, you know, supposed to be able to get more oxygen. And the way that works is through your cytoplasm. And so anything that's chlorophyll actually helps the circulation So you find out that that's how, when it comes down to Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, these and the Earth, when they're connected as spheres that now are into its alignment, you're basically like a candlestick. And if you know about that, that's where you get this, they call it the Imperium. And in that, that's the point of saying Snow White and the seven dwarfs. When that dwarf energy or light is just like how you had the candlestick, it's the same illustration as the planets. Now, of course, us showing the planets isn't really how it's done to say that this is how all the, they could be aligned like that. It's just that this is how your body can be aligned in the same aspect. And just like what I was saying about the circle, these aren't really the planets. You know what I'm saying? These are just the layout of what you can see as a planet, the format of the energy. So it made it a point of, how do you know these things? Well, it's through the flat earth. It was through the Norse myths that they've been showing out, numerology, you studying the stars is on the earth. People been writing it out. The Islam's be using the circle 7. You got 7 days of the so-called week. There's so many things that you got a 7 on your dollar bill. Everyone got a 7 on their dollar. Turn it upside down, right? You got a dollar bill. Look at it. Turn it upside down. Look at that circle. You got a shadow 7 over there where your pyramid is at. And if you really, want to say certain things are real, it's been real so much in your face that we got to start paying attention to what these 7s are. So it's talking about the tetragrammaton. And so when we talk about the bees, honeybees, how they make a beehive is the same way how that tree created this, what we call the firmament, and how we basically made the flower of life, the tree branch, and how the branch stemmed out, not only being a stem, it had brought the leaves and the fruit. And these are through the time frame. Like the first 7, you might not have nothing, but the next 7, you're going to have something. And so through that, it created a star. And so 7 and 7 was, 14, yet it was a representation of 5. And that's how the bee, like the bee yourself, is the connection. So royalty was basically next to loyalty. And so if you loyal, it's still the 7, but it's with oilty. So your oil or your soil was by root, by anything in your root. So when you're seeing these ways that they were imitating the root, they start putting themselves in alignment by putting themselves in a line. And when they create a line, it was still like saying a lion. So Lion to ALIGN became, the trap. there was,
and here this says the British beehive. Not sure if everybody can see what this says right here. It says the British beehive.
Right. And so there was more of a dissecting the insection. So, or the intersection. So there wouldn't be an intersection. There'll be an insection or inception. And this is why there's 9 actual waves to reality. We have conception. That's when you gave birth. That's the contraction. And then you have inception. How did it actually start? When you thought that's when you gave birth? It started before you got even started thinking about giving birth. And then there's perception, because you're like, oh, I didn't think of that. So now you see deception. The deception is the 4. And this was the true avatar. Women have the avatarian hair, so when you think of deception, is your reciprocity, which is 5. 5 is your that's why the lion represented whether you lying down, you sitting, or you standing up. And so 5 represented like sitting on all 4s. That's why it was important to see the being with 4 fingers and then go to 5. This is where you get the Dogon aspect from. So the one who came out of the water was like the sun sitting on the water. And that's where you get from A to Z, a zeta. So you got Nibiru as your mountain climbing on the M energy. So you time travel. So the way one time travels is to actually know how to move as water waves, the sine and waves. So waves, sine, and waves is one thing to another. That's what you're seeing right there, the DNA being able to switch up. So the X became a chromosome. Like in itself, you got to know you got to, you know, cross into yourself. So they made the crossway or railroad cross the X. That was still saying 10. Yet this is a part of 4. This is how we knew Capricorn and Cancer is this tropical, non-tropical energy, right? And this is how we start figuring out where we got this X marks the spot. There you are, treasure chest, your family, sacrifice, all the scapegoat, Baphomet, all of these working in the same realm where we were saying, hey, how did that work? Because it's time and space in that. And that represents how you don't see it from a 13 unless you look at something like this as a calendar. And when you look at those type of calendars, they're going to show you 13 moons, not the months. And if you could get on tune with that, you're really now starting to come out of the box. You're now starting to see the beehive change for you. It takes a minute. I know it took me a minute. I didn't get this overnight. When you look at these numbers, the actual date that you're thinking of is at the bottom of those actual bold numbers. But yet you're finding out each moon cycle is giving us some kind of connection. That's why people be feeling the way they feel when that moon is up. You're like, oh, I feel a little something today, but you don't know what it is though. So this is going to kind of help you tune that. We didn't have that tuning fork. Like parents today, they too busy working. They ain't got time to look at stuff like that. But if you just get up here, yes, respect the lunar. If you get up here, you start to now see this is why these brothers are up here doing the layout so that we can break it down, and now we can get around each other and work on who's not here to do the deception on each other. We got to actually get away from the deceptional part. And that's what I was saying as far as conceptions. There's deception. And when you get reciprocity, that's where your reception feels better. You're going to want better antennas to yourself. You're going to want to ground better versus just put your foot halfway down and still can't put the other foot down, because once you put the other foot down, you know, somebody looking at you, seeing that your foot is down. You got to still, you know, feel love. You know what I'm saying? So the love comes from seeing the interception, because that's what the Hail Mary ended up happening. Hail Mary, the deception of the football game where the ball jumped thrown in, you know, interference. So the interception, then you have an interception. So now you got to go within. That's where the Buddha stage, the 7-day, you know, the 6th day did this, 7-day, you know, they doing like how you doing. See his feet? One's on the 5, another one's on the 6. And you can see that that is the representation of one got to ground themselves more when one is more assured of themselves if they do take their foot off the ground. So that's the explanation to how this is what we were knowing from a Ma Sun to then Mason point of view. That's how the avatars, from them having the staffs in their hand to even canes, would it be a representation if we would see this in our actual livelihood? This is why there's a lot of, like what we see of my brother right here. He's mixed up with all of his realities put on him. This is what makes the true avatar. If you wanted to put one out there. Once you know that you're expression from one side of the land to the other, now you see yourself.
This is a powerful image right here. Powerful image.
If you saw yourself only from a minute, what they call it, a minority point of view, you wouldn't see that all we've done already. You wouldn't see the railroad tracks to the bridges to the all of these things that from our Asiatic side to the non-Asiatic, because we couldn't even call it non-Asiatic until the Tomahawks came in, and then we could say non-Asiatic, because there's so much bridged out from the. We know that we were calling people red people, but we were hearing people of color, and then we heard people of color being these other people so-called black and the African American. So it was so much switch up that it was a derogative or the domestic concept to say Indian, right, and make them wild, because that means domesticated. So this is why this movie Avatar was so important, to put them in this out of the cage mentality, so that we had to be seen again Yet this is supposed to be like the best that we got as our superhero ability. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, this don't look superheroic. This look like some big fools over here jump around. Then they got, let's fight. That's my only solution. You're like, what? Even if you look at our Asiatic side, when we found out how we fought, right, they'll come up with a game. And the game will be of wits. It wouldn't just be fight of hands. So that's why I was like, oh, this is barbaric. So they're showing Barbary, the idea of the Barbary, and that's what we get from our seer, Duke of Tears. Broke that down too. So it's like when we realized that they're wanting to show the barbarism, that's why they got the haircuts, like the Apache and things of that nature in it. So you can see that they want to get you, already in a domesticated. If these were Indians, this what these Indians would look like. Yet there's a difference between Indians that's being indigenous and Indian that's being aboriginal. And then you hear this word North American. That's why it became North American natives. And those are like misnomers. So that's why you hear a lot of people that say, oh, let's just stop right here and get this correct so that we won't continue on what we call the little white lie. Because it's okay to say the big black lie, but then if it's a little white lie, no, it's bad if you say the big black lie, but then if it's a little white lie, it's okay. You can get away with it. Nah, that's not. It's the same. Actually, it's worse. Because you think you should be all right to do this, and this is why this is important too, to also realize in the movie they were showing the child connecting to the tree. I don't know how many of you really paying attention to that, because it's about your insects. These insects are one side of the family, right? I'm just watching another movie. It's called Daniel Spellbound. I'm like, yo, they throwing in here. They went in first episode. They went in and they got 9 episodes. So I'm like, here we go again. Oh yeah, Maya and the 3, 9 episodes. I'm telling you, they going in on this eagle. Anyway, in this, he basically is connecting to his higher source through magic. So this all about avatars, like the world of magic, just like what they did with Pinocchio. If we get to the real science to this whole thing, it's called the marionette. If you look it up, it's MARIONETTE, but it's a French terminology, which goes back to the Moors again, and how they put seven strings on basically a X, like a cross, and then made it for doing puppeteering. So puppeteering, a puppet is the actual, supposed to be the grasshopper, right? But then you got Geppetto is his made up father. And at the same time, Pepe is his conscience. There's a blue fairy that comes in, blue goddess. She gives him the connection. Oh yeah, I'm going to the Navi in a second. Oh yeah. Navy and Navi. But the blue angel, here we go with that one too. The blue angel comes in, blue goddess, she comes in and gives him, granted him the connection. And she gave Pepe the conscience, because he don't have a conscience. And that was how he's supposed to gain his conscience once he do great deeds. So you seeing again another Moor, because look at his colors from the hat. And then the colors that he be wearing is yellow and blue. So they be putting that Captain America joint all throughout on a lot of stuff. We wouldn't pay attention to it, the Nomad, but he's the 5-point star as well. So when he go black, in a real old school, he killed Pepe. He stepped on him. But this one, he kept him alive, and then he got what he's supposed to have gotten. So there was always a mixed alternate ending to this Pinocchio. Needless to say, they use Pinocchio like a Legba in there, and they use Pinocchio like they use the Avatar. So he's a part of this Avatarian connection as well, with the cane and the umbrella, and he's like phenomenal at doing whatever he has to do up in there, whether he's stuck in the glass or trick these characters out. But it gets to you just like how we think of what the Navi represented. The Navi was the actual militant part to the whole thing. And you can see it from them shooting the arrows. Think about this. The Navi had the word VA in it, right? Navi being from the Nilotic Nigeria, because when we think of Cameroon, Cameroon was also a part of that connection. This is, you know, us finding out about crystals and how the crystals work. You know, we gotta be in tune with that. The same thing that they were being in tune with. You know, and this is how our higher vibration really does connect to our science. That this is why the tribe actually had these abilities and movements that from, you know, the hat and their position could have been even the next level that was missing out of the movie. But it was cool because they didn't want to go too far into it. It would have been like taking you, you know what I mean, over the edge of you being like, that's my people, you know. And the Navy is the Navi. So just like how the connection of that was being said, that when you find out Amma is AMMA, which is massage. So the touch, the toning, the tunes, all of that was a difference to how the real Avatarian from us, we learned Tao, and Tao is the way. So we find out through water, like how there was really, you know, making that connection. It's like speaking to the water is like speaking to your body, because you got basically lymphatic tissue on the body. So if we could cleanse the body, is basically by getting rid of the toxin. And then that's when you start to feel like how my sister here, this is my actual sister, she's doing the Avatarian connection to her higher self, her higher soul, her oversoul. So when we're in tune with that side, you'll see your majestic side happen, and it'll unfold to where you look like other people around in that, you know, realm, because you have an aura about you. It's not about the physical you that people are paying attention to. So when it's the music, you know, the genre, how do you express it, shows that the Oshun, the desire, has this bigger connection to you as like the avatar. What were they looking at as this tree, like a Babaloye? You know what I mean? Like that's the answer to my answers. You know what I mean? So a lot of people got into the lotus to express their Buddhism, you know, things like that, or the peace lily. They might, you know, just have that in their foundation. These are the things that when we say, you know, to put oxygen back to us is from the Navy, or the nativity, the navel. And that was the ironic thing is in there, they didn't breastfeed. So you couldn't see the nipples, and there was no nipples. So they were showing us the real reality of how they wanted to have it cloned versus how women, our real women, our sisters, our mamas, our aunts, our aunties, at a point, if they were to give out breast milk, they had did that for $1. You know what I mean? And it was so that they can, you know, get through the hard times in that time when it was so-called, quote unquote, the hard times. Because we got to look at how much of us really had skills and didn't think what we were skills. You know what I mean? So the expression behind that made it a point where they're going to put this in a movie. So they're going to say, hey, we got a way that we can just get her off the tree. And this is how we did actually learn from the tree. However, to make it like we're clone people and not now attached to our mother, that was the oxymoron into the whole movie, to now say that really just like how we would call on God, and I, you know, no disrespect to none of y'all that's out there, when you call on God, you're supposed to be calling on God within before you call on the God outside. And so it made it a lesser of the lesser. And so just like the mother, there's women in there the whole time, but they were kind of like the lesser of the lesser, even though they were talking to them and they were making sure that they got it established how they wanted to get, you know, order. They just didn't. It was like kind of like a behind the scenes while we in there with the camera, and we're looking at what's really going on, because they still got to have the mother in there expressing what needs to be done. We call that mut, M-U-T. So this word MUT is basically like the bacteria, one who destroys the bacteria and then creates life out of it. And so that's death. And Ampu is the child of that. So when we're seeing this movie and we see this child come out, there go the Helios and Libertas. So Libertas is a Latin word, you know, and this is how you see the expression. So when we say the sun It didn't have to be a good sun. It could be a bad sun, or it could be a dark sun. So they call it the black sun. And so this is how you saw the mother who said, I'm gonna take in the sun, right? Of like how Hades is. I'm gonna take in the sun. So I'm gonna take in the sun, but I'm gonna use this son and turn him to a good son, not a bad son. So this is where you get the Anpu story. And this is also where you get the story about Spider. Spider's supposed to be the one who basically killed off the whole area and wanted to destroy everything. You know, he was just a destroyer basically. And so through that, he ended up having a child. Now, me personally, I had to go back and do my own research. Like, how did he get this child? Where did this child come from? Anyway, okay. This child popped out of nowhere, and he, you know, they said he was living through the time, and then he just decided to take him through the other side because he was the only one that experiment through that time frame of life and whatever. Anyway, I'm like, how you chicken and the egg with no chicken? All right. Anyway, so bring him in here, and the sister basically takes him in just like how you see it in Jungle Book. And that's how you see in that part of the India side. You know, every time I see blue, I be thinking of shrooms. So they be messing me up with this, with the colors and everything. But yeah, that's how they're showing us that reality of how the mycelium from the fungi planet, the consciousness, can express color even in dark. It's not about the sun that we see. It's a dark sun that also has been connected. And so in this expression, it can also show you that, you know, it could be the albinoism that we created of our child, that we said, oh, I wanted a child. But then you're like, oh, this is not the child I wanted. And you got that dark skin like I was expecting. What happened? Well, I ain't taking the child. And then they're like, what? We just had we went through 9 months, bro. You keeping this child. I don't know what you talking about. So there's this split off that masculine and feminine became as a principle where we don't realize. And so like what this is ironic though, when they had Pepe, which is Pata, when they had Pepe and Pinocchio, he was standing on this saponi. So I was looking at the word saponi, I was like, wait a minute, this is an Italian word. Well, this is how they can also change again the dialect. So by the time you are ready to know it, you are already docile or already like numbed out from it, that you wouldn't realize this is how they switched up. But when we talk about saponi, the saponi, that's our people that basically created this soap so that we would clean. Remember, this was talking about necrophilia. So ironic that we had to basically become masculine and feminine in the approach to get the cleaning going in separation because of the invasion. Now, when we were saying invasion of the Italy's, it had to be an invasion that was done to Italy. And so there's this other side to it. The Sicilians, when my brethren broke down, when you hear the word Latin to Latino, you know, how it went Latina. And this is the Nilotech. The Nilotech would be the Cameroons. And when you look at Cameroons, that's why the word Navi was put there. Yet you can hear, take A out of that and take out the tar out of it, and you get VA. So it's like as if they took Virginia and put that in here too, along with, you know, somebody in Africa, and put that together. So it would be like, oh, this is made up, you know, and then you're like, wait a minute, is this made up or not? And then you're like finding out, oh, this is a whole tribal thing. Yet again, it could be made up. So now I don't know if it's made up with other people in it. Because I think of Nottoway when I hear the Navi tribe. And when I look at the Nottoway, that was the same time that we have Nat Turner out. And Nat Turner was doing 1800s, 1831. So if this was the Battle of the Ottoman, it was from 1780s to the 1800s. Now, you see her face? The face that she got right there was the same connection on the arrows, right? And when I first saw the avatar, I was like, yo, I'm so familiar with these colors. Why? Because that's Jamaican colors. So I was like, yo, she rocking Jamaican colors? Is she from Jamaica? So it just had me like going to more of an expression. I was like, yo, they're getting us with the color scheme because the yellow is in the eyes of the cat. And so you think of the cat being like Sekhmet. Sekhmet represented just like Basset. And so she had that when she was like ready to fight, you know what I mean? So she had that tigress energy. So it made it a point where the royalty side ended up being the barbaric side. I said, oh, that's how they nomadic in us. They want her to be nomadic first, but she was like, because, you know, she was shooting arrows and but then she was also showing don't kill, you know. So then it was like, oh, there's a purpose behind your killing, you know. So you had to also see that too. And it's only if you were there though, because it takes a minute to learn, you know, masculine and feminine as principles. Because, you know, if I took out trash, you know what I'm saying? How did I take it out? Was I rough when I took out this? I took the trash out like this? Or did I take my time to take the trash out? It might be, you might find out that's feminine how you took the trash out. I'm like, yo, man, I didn't know you feminine like that. You be like, no, man, what you calling feminine? And then, you know, get all, you know, big and whatnot. But it's basically letting us know that we're able to use different modals. And that's what the armor, the massage was about. That's what the touch was about. That's what your feelings is about. So this whole movie was really based on feelings. If you had fear, right? How do you react in fire? How do you react on the earth? How do you react with the air? How do you react when you're in the rain? Okay, let's just go river then. How about we underwater? You know what I mean? How do you gonna react? Or you just gonna be just reacting? You're just gonna be like panicking? You in a panic? You got a panic button? What's gonna happen? And so these are the things that when you're watching these movies, don't just look at, oh, that was a good movie and walk away from it. Get in tune with it. This is really your science, and they're giving it to you so that you can get it from that glyphic sign and that glyphic way that you've been asked for from the ancestors. And they said, well, okay, since we've been putting it to you flat form and on a platform, and you still didn't see the form, then how about a uniform? And then we formulate. So this is where you get the two different sides of it. Now, I notice us, we say I'm not a zodiac sign. Well, what I found out through the research is you're also not only a zodiac sign, you're two of that zodiac sign, right? And this is through Miss Myra Moss. Look her up. She's a great sister to break down the zodiac as a whole. And so this is the holistic side of you seeing the masculine and the feminine. So now you can say these are the principles that I'm working with. So if you're in these, you know, if it's a month that you favor, it's because of that moon cycle, and then it's also because of that deity in that cycle. This is how you find out that you know, your energy is getting into a higher purpose, and you didn't know that, you know, there's these other beings. Let's say if it's on this particular land, one of these beings might be this deity, might be this energy for this land area. That's how it became like the firmament. So that tree wasn't just a tree, it was the source to the energy that everybody's, you know, in and off of or coming into. So it was like a constant continuum. And this would made it the expression, like Set. Set would be like the negative, the man that was killing. But then you get Anpu. Anpu would be the son, that child of Set. But it was like saying, how did I get this child? Well, the child came through Ma'at. And if Ma'at had a child and was not from, you know, Tahuti, then what does this child come from? It's coming from Nephis. So now I'm seeing that we have twins in these concepts. Like Aset is still a twin to Set. And this is why I'd be like, oh, it sounds confusing. Well, they wanted you to sound confused so that you'll never get amused by your own science. And once you start to see how this works, it's all body parts. It's all 12 body parts. It's your colors that's going from yellow to red and red to orange. And then you got that yellow and blue, and the mixture makes it green. This is you going back into yellow again. And then you got to go into orange so you can fix the sacral synergy of self, so you won't be scared. You can now use the word scared, SCARED, sacred. You know, changing the molecular structure up versus saying, oh, I'm scared of it all the time. Well, that's called fear, fire, earth, air, and rain. And the more you look at it, is acronyms. FEAR, so fire, earth, air, rain. And once you start to see that in your mind, you can start now creating the power for yourself. This power that we've been looking for is called synergy, and you synergize a lot. So it depends on what you do for 24 hours. Are you looking at TV for your energy, or are you creating the energy? You know what I'm saying? And they made it from creature and creator. So then it became a maker. So we don't want to be making, you know, a lot of stuff. We want to create. So that comes from the within to be without. You know, some, as the Buddhas, we found out that they didn't take anything, and then they were so humble, then they start accepting water or whatever. We first got to realize how we survive first, right? And so whatever we did was not to take from the land until we figured out knew how to give to the land. And that's what made it different from this karmic debt that we seeing that we're doing. A lot of us want to get a paycheck, but then you rip off that little pay stub, you throw that trash right on the earth while you going to get your check and, you know, get your little dollar bills or whatever. But then there's that trash that you got from whatever you bought, and you throw that right on the earth. There's so much of the difference of if we could see the earth differently, you know, maybe connect to the earth versus throwing stuff on the earth, taking your shoes off. That's what they're showing you in this movie, so that you won't have to say, if I live barbaric, do I have to stay barbaric? Because maybe I don't have to stay barbaric. Maybe I can do some upliftment, and not only for me, for the people around me. If you notice that the actual character, John, he ended up having like, what, 3 that was his and 1 that was not. And out of that, it was like he had to bond with them. And no, he had 2 that was his, 1 that wasn't his, and then they were just adopted the other one. So and it was like 4 altogether. So the 2 that he had was the Cain and the Abel, and they was always like at each other, like, I'm gonna do me, you do you, I'm gonna do me, you know, and I'm gonna tell dad, and we're like, oh, dad always like you, dad always favor you. Well, you'll find that that's in everybody's relationship in their family. Now that you have that, realize that, you know what I'm saying, and learn that who's the Cinderella or the Cinderella. You know, that's not just the Cain and Abel, it's also the women that go through it. That's principles. That's what I was saying, that it can get to you so much that you see it, yet you got to realize the distortment that's still there, so that you can identify within yourself and fix that, the distortment that you might be feeling about yourself. Like, you know, I love my sister, and it's the time I want to bond with her, yet we still on that, just like the movie of Cain and Abel. Until we can fix it, we have to actually, you know, go within, love ourselves for who we are, and then we can come on out, and then we can do the hand touching and the feeling of, you know, how they're doing this. They're showing us bonding at its utmost from the level of how did they grow up. They started out with their hair long. I don't know if y'all noticed that. So they got to have long hair in the beginning. Oh, wow. Braided hair too? Wow. So who are they? The people I know is the Olmecs that had braided hair on a basalt, B-A-S-A-L-T statue. And big as I don't know what, huge, bigger than the actual human being aspect, or the so-called human being. But it's just the idea, the reality behind it, that they had braided hair in a helmet that was under it. So the priesthood aspect, they're known as priest and priesthood, and then they didn't even have this up there. So when we talking about Sumerian texts, we're talking about this now being there. So the Anunnaki, the Elohim aspect, the snake, the serpent, how does that connect back to what we know as the step pyramid? And because it was a knowledge that was brought out from Tikal, we know Mexico, Old Mexico. So Olmeca is just like the saying Mecca. So there's this step pyramid from like even Luxor to Lex Luthor, the Superman energy. How do we see the sun when it gets to the highest step? And that's where I was just like saying with the 7 being upside down on a dollar bill. When you flip it right, you can see the dark shadow as a 7. That's the circle 7. So a lot of us are in the shadow. We just don't see the light. And the light is in the eye of a bull. And a bull could be a blue bull or a red bull. And that's why we're learning these things. That's why the blue bull represents the day, seeker, as the night seeker becomes the dark night. And that's where you get Batman with the Ma'at. That comes from Brother Sanchez. He broke that down with the Ma'at and how the Moses is connected with the rod. But this again, Moses, the rod, the abracadabra, the caduceus. That's the 13th zodiac. Having the staff in the hand with the wings spread out of Ma'at, with the 2 snakes going towards each other, the Ida and the Pingala. The vortex of saying the red and the white, or just basically saying the red and the blue. Actually coming into oneself and realize where self comes back into realization. So these are the levels of the high giant, the big giant, the human so-called, and the dwarf. And so if there were stages, the 7 dwarves end up being like the 7 planets, even though we got the top, the middle, and the bottom. We got the in-betweens. So now when I look at this, it's like saying this: the 1, 2, the 3, 4, the 5, the 6, and the 7, which is 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Now, of course, this splits. So just like this is already have a split somewhere, and these also, and then those also. So there's a level to how we have to, it's a coming together to this whole body, right, in the olfactory, and we'll start to actually congregate. And so just like Jesus, who sat with the 12 disciples, that was your 13 that was sitting at the table. That was what they call the Eurochrist. And so if it was the constellation of change, it was from where Scorpio and Sagittarius had to have a change. Scorpio represent your groin area to have birth. That's why that was important to put in an avatar, to have a birth from a blue flame, right? Like a blue ether or blue emerald energy or emerald city, to now out of the blue lodge, this lodge, as they say, Jack up the hill, because he was blue. Jack represents blue, the actual blue Jack Frost. So you turn so cold, you're blue, that whole aspect. So the bull or the cow is now a goat. That's the 10. So we're talking about the scapegoat, the genie in the lamp, all of that's the blue, Brahma. So we're having Jack becoming a child, existence. And this is where we see the spill and the spell. We're having dreams. Dreams represents dream casting, like cast and castile. So the castile or castle is your heaven, is the fortress, is your firmament. Going back to the steeple or the people is like basically going back to what we call this one is the radio astrology. So everyone has a radio astrology point of reasoning with themselves. So as like right here on my head is a temple. So the temple, how the temple is shaped is in a like a masculine point, but this masculine point is in a circle. So it's not, masculine all the way, but it illustrates feminine and masculine. So now you can see that when it came down the conical sun, they expressed themselves with levels to it. And that's where you get the Jacob's ladder, the 7 steps, the seven steps to the 8-9 pyramid. So when we said 7, 8 represented the 4 squares, but yet that was like saying just 4, but there's an indentation on each section of the 4. That's what represented 8, as above, so below, which meant like, let's say if I had the sun on one side, and then within, let's say 14 going on 15 day, it's going to be switched to the middle, and then the next 14, if it, going to the next. So it was always a switch. So they made it like 3 months. 3 months on one side, 3 months on the other side, 3 months. So that's how they were able to tell time. We were able to tell time with that. This is why that's missing in the movie of Avatar. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see them showing you time, because that's where the illusion started, at creating time. The whole movie was like, wait a minute, where are we going with this? So now it's just about them running away from whoever's chasing them, versus them being strong about, you know, their resource. And then it was more like an infiltration again, right? And then by the time it was infiltration, it was like, all right, well, I'm glad you helped us out. You did great. You know, I'm paraphrasing. And then it was like, well, we'll see you again. You're always welcome. And then they just like left. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Y'all came over here. Y'all brought all this negative tail energy. I got wiped out most of my stuff, all because y'all came over here. I'm still cool with it. I helped y'all fight. And now we cool with y'all. I'm going to let y'all come on back whenever y'all want to come on back. What kind of story is that? Like, who made this up? You know, and it makes it a point where the reasoning. Now, I get it, you know, because we bond so much. What I didn't get was how that, like, again, this is a movie, so they had to be fast with it. They had to be one person versus a whole tribe of these whole people that's having these issues. The bonding was very important for them to learn. And so that's why they was teaching each other like structure, you know what I'm saying? And if you really look at it, there's a story about stress on YouTube, is about the baboons, and the baboons are known as the kakarats, and the kakarats basically like the tail people, the people with tails, but it wasn't people, it was actually baboons. They're known as kakarats, and they were from this side of the continent, South Carolina, and they were brought over here, but their lifestyle, they was hostile. So they were in the 20 year about to die or become extinct. And that's why they were brought over here, so they could learn how not to become extinct. So what they had to deal with was grooming. And so you see in this Avatar, they get more in tune with, you know, learning how to love each other. They don't know how to love each other. And that's what we're having an issue with in reality. A lot of us don't push love as the love that we should be seeing yet. And because we're pushing love the way that it was taught to us, we're thinking that's love. Like, go over there and hug that child. And you're like, that child don't even like you, let alone you over here hugging the child. And then you're mad at the child for not liking you, when you got to open up to the child so the child can like you. Sometimes the child is on guard because their mother taught them that, and their mother went through something and you didn't realize that. So you wanted to push you being there because you're a present. Yet the present is the child, not you. So it has to be another way of saying, okay, well, let the child be for who they are for right now until we get to it where the child can be who they are. And then you can see where it's going at. Because, you know, there's certain things that we look at that's giving us now the open door to say, okay, now they're starting to see that they can branch out. Because if you look at the movie, when the character that basically was the bad guy the whole time, he ended up finally getting the bond with his son, even though he was saying, that's not my son. He was bonding with him. So he was bonding with him so much that by the time it got down to it, it was like a son for a son, right? And he was like, he was looking at him like, dang, you're gonna take my son out. But then he's like, shoot, I'm at, like, you know what I mean? Like, it ain't my son. So she was like, well, all right. So a cut for a cut. So she started cutting. And then he's like, okay, wait. And that's how you starting to see the realization that he started to feel that love, that see this right here, the pyramid, and how it's connected. There's a section within the section. And if you notice, it's not even on the ground. So that's how you know the pyramid is like a 7. It has a shadow that we don't see underneath it, because it's basically that it's like it was put there, but it can fly or something. Something's different about how we're looking at life and not seeing it for what it is verbatim. And that's where you have to not just draw the line. You got to also see the curve, because things can look flat. It looks like it's flat. Don't that look like it's flat right there? But if you get really close, it got some kind of roundness to it. You got to touch it. You got to get more closer to it. And if you know it, notice that even while we're going past it, there's those dents in between in the middle of those squares. So that's how you knew that there was a extra, call it when we said 4. We have an 8 to everything. You know, the dollar bill is the actual 8. The door we go through is an 8. This phone is an 8. So that was the I Ching. That was the way to start with the water reflection. 8 represents the Scorpio. So going into the water is like the next generation unfolding and coming out. That's why this was important to see how, just like how that plant was coming out of the earth, the plant in itself is the seed that popped out itself, you know. And once that happens, there is this bond that we're seeing now that we're connected to from the green and the black of our skin. How do we know that soil is our skin? You know, how do we know that hue comes from a soil connection, not an actual color zone? It's the tone that most people took and now use that as the generic term, so that when we're hearing it, it's more docile. Because when we think blue, blue is also another form of this hue. So it's still an adjective. It's not an actual noun as we think of soil. So this blue, the green, the black, all this comes from soil. That was the whole idea, to express this so much. And just like you think soul, that's how these people were able to come back in life. Because you're like thinking, how does this doctor come back in life? She dead. You know, how does this man John who snitched, you know, he snitched on the avatars. How he gonna come back? And he don't have a body, you know. And that's the story of Enoch. So they're giving you some biblical connections, yet it's just for reference, so that you still want to get more reference. You gotta have more reference, because if not, you'll stop, you know, doing what you do. You start to think that everything is just flat, you know. And that's where it makes it more of an expression to say, if you had more time to look at it, would you? As technology, we saying from A to Z, and tech represents techno or technology. So when it became Aquarian knowledge, you've been Aquarius for a while now. You just didn't know it because you was waiting for it to become the age of Aquarius. Well, it already been here. So now we're saying, oh, where's it at? I ain't seen it yet. It's supposed to be coming. And then by the time it gets out of the, you know, it been here, you're going to say, oh, there. Oh, wait. Oh, man. When did I get it? You know, and it's going to go right past you. So that's why it was important to know the port, P-O-R-T, the port and portion of what we say parcel and partial. Partial meaning like belonging to, but parcel as if it came from somewhere else. So now it's being charged or discharged from one side to another. This is how we know tradesman versus trademark. If we were trademark, that means we're chattel property. And this is where it was getting really, you know, if we were saying, oh, if they ever started writing, they're going to be in trouble. Because they did nothing with writing the whole time they were doing this avatar thing. And nobody write nothing. So you can see this is basically dealing with nature. All this is dealing with nature. They're connecting to their fish. They're connecting to. Now, the only problem I was having is they didn't show really no building. They were showing like as if they just hunters and gatherers. I said, oh, this is where the domesticated part is being put in. So it's like, oh, we ain't got no higher than, the only way we're going to learn it is off this tree to give us this knowledge. And we ain't doing nothing else but whatever knowledge the tree tells us. And it seems like that's where you can see, because I've been reading the Aztec book, and in the Aztec book, they're basically saying the same, kind of like in the same reference to where they'll do things. See how he's touching and making that connection? They'll do things, but they really didn't have no real true, you know, value of life. They just enjoying life. So I'm like, wait a minute, is this Luxor with luxury? Because this is luxury. They're looking at, oh, this is like a vacation. So they're doing a lot of vacation stuff. Ooh, I would love to get on a bird and fly. You know what I'm saying? Yet it's not we're not in vacation. And the moment you say vacant, that means you empty. So this whole connection to the animals was really them tapping into the totems of their bodies. and being able to project that higher source. You see the skin is bluish green and then blue. So there's different hues that we're connected from. And those hues are from the chlorophyll. So it's not just, you eating off the land, you eating out of the water. Just like sea moss. Sea moss is another way to tap into those trace minerals that'll help, amino acids. I was just speaking on the 8. You want to get 9. You want to get that 9 ether energy popping up. So from the 8, you can get 9, but the 9 represents melatonin. That's like a creation of yourself once you eat the 8. So you're like an alchemist for yourself. You just gotta like have the extra chemicals, which we call it broken down ions, or broken down, I'm gonna say from the periodic table, broken down atoms. Once you put them into the body, you see that they're also helpful for the free radical. That's, because we use the free radical. That's Ampu. That's the negative energy. That's like the son of what we just said, of Seth, that he's in there. They call it spider. He's number 8. 8 represents the arms, the tentacles of a spider. So he's in there taking care, or she is in there taking care, just like the locks that you saw on the child's head. That's another indication. She is taking care of, he's taking care of whatever's going on in the system that needs to get out. So Ampu, Anubis, your dog star, your cat is helping out your cat. That's why Panthers came before we saw Avatar. Yet the cat also still is a part of that, because that's a cat. So the tiger, the tigress, the jaguar, the jackal, all that's another, again, going into the cat and the other dog, the dog aspect. The spider that we saw as this little boy is a representation of Ampu. However, there's different types of Ampu. What we call it the Wapanog. The Wapanog is a different name in Mexico, where they gave the same name to Anubis or Ampu. So we can see that the jackal is a familiar tune to us, and they could put it in human form, like Kansu, when we talking about with Moon Knight. When we see that they're giving us the braided hair, brother. The braided hair brother is Kansu, but yet the Kansu represents your wisdom. Same thing as a version of Pepe being a version of Ptah. That's your father. And in order for you to know your path, that's Ptah, and they call it Peter. Now, if it was to know your path, is to know it through Ra. So your raw energy, RA, or your ARA, is how you are in existence. So now you say X marks the spot. That's how you know you become Aten. It's your antennae, your antenna. You connect. Now you attune yourself. We say atonement. So that's where your obtainment comes from. And so, the ghost or the pale, that's where you get from the connection of the blue, just like the moon. This is where you get Moon Knight. So the dark, the night, that's the representation. And for him, he was like a version of Ampu. And so he carried the Ankh. He had the actual Ankh. If you look back in the day, he was really carrying the Ankh. So 1970s, they were going hard in the paint on our culture. They just had to dissect it so much that's why you see the cloak. You see the cloak. Basically, they're going to come up with a cloak and dagger. That's next. Or they already got it. Actually, they already got it out. But they got it in a young version. So you wouldn't know what you're looking at yet. But that Moon Knight is another way of saying, know the crescent and the moon and the stars. So they're giving us the actual bone marrow. They're giving us the cancer. They're giving us the Tin Man, the old and the young. Because look at how Kansu is the old, the one who's talking in there. He's young, but then he got another character who's the mercenary. He seemed like he's a little bit older than him. So enable in the story, just like in Avatar, the Cain and Abel was the young brother and the older brother. Then next thing you know, I ain't gonna spoil it for y'all who don't see it, but just look at it and you see how it go. And then you're like, oh, that's a Cain and Abel thing. And then it would be like, well, dang. Then, you know, the mother or the father gets a little angry. I ain't gonna tell you who. And then here's this second moment happening. And you're like, oh, that's why it had to happen. Because they're showing you this woman ferocious in rage. And she has to be enraged. But if she's enraged, then she's gonna just murder. So they had to show it to you in a reverse, to where she's really angry, not enraged. And so that's how you learn about Buddha. Buddha is to not go in rage. And then this also teaches you also the connection to our black law dictionary. When you find out rage is put in the dictionary, this is how most people go to jail, because they act in rage. And that's why this would be a great depiction for our, you know, our younger children. They're really looking at movies and they looking to see if somebody say booty and, you know, all of the names. And you got to look for it too, though. It ain't going to be just let them look for it. You got to look for it as well. You got to be on the codex finding to make sure it's all right. It's clean, a clean version. Because sometimes it might slip right on by you. And then as soon as you sitting there and they say, oh, he hit him in the butt. And then you're like, ah, you start seeing them laughing. And you're like, oh, what are they laughing about? And then you look, and then that's what they were doing. They were showing it to them. So to give them the Sagittarius hip without saying that, they'll use the Saturnalia. That's how the switch up. See the arrow? That's Saturn. That's also Sagittarius. So it's giving you one side of the deity without giving you the connection to the demiurge of that deity. So, and then there's the yellow, the green and the black. You notice her arrows were always green and black. And like I said, she had a little bit of yellow in there. So you're seeing the Jamaican colors. You're seeing how, you know, if mama was mad, it would be like Empress Nanny. It could be her, or Nzinga. There's so many, we could put her in as all of these women being one. And that's when you find out when deities were put in front of us, it looked like a bunch of people. They didn't look like one person in particular. And that's how you even yourself, you might be going down the street and you might have your back completely turned. And somebody say, yo, da-da-da-da-da. And then you turn around, oh, my bad, man. You look so like such and such and such, though. My bad, man. I ain't really, dang, you look like such and such. Dang, you really do. You know, and it's that. They're seeing your avatar spirit that, you know, we are on other sides of the continent, and we wouldn't even know it like that until we start to, you know, get in tune with it, express a little bit more that, you know, you are more open enough to receive that. And what we're learning now, because this time and era is happening, they're giving us blue right now. However, we got to learn green. Learning the green will help you get to the blue. If you learn green, that's why we were just talking about the foods. This is how you get to the blue. Now the blue, they was expressing it through Ramadan. That's how you hear it, Rama. Rama was a part of your fasting, your intermediate fast, things like that. And it helps with what we've been calling it, the COVID. The COVID represents the Chronos. So it's not COVID itself, it's an actual Greek god called Chronos. And because Chronos, like from with my brother KT, the arts degree, he was breaking down, you know, the food and how you eat, from food, the solid, the liquid, the gas. There's an easy line. And in the easy line, that helps us alchemize, not always negative when we're thinking of it. When it is a negative, it's a grounding. And so since it becomes a negative, you can switch that to become a positive. Now, how do you do that? Is through you seeing it for what it is and then able to accept, to let go. And that's what I was talking about as far as the 9 ways to your interception. And once that interception happens, the 7, the Buddha, you can either say exception, as in EX, or exception with an A, CC, exception. These are your 9 ways of how do you connect back to yourself. Like, I don't accept that, or now I finally accept it. but it was because of the conception, the inception, the perception, the deception, and the reception from reciprocity of an interception to now interception. One who's now faced their trials and tribulations, you can finally say, you know what, I got enough to let go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna travel up the mountain when I got scuba gear to go into the water. You know, I'm just start dropping off some of this load, and if I come this way, you know, I might bury it. So that way, you know, if I have to come back this direction, I know where it's at. Versus, I'm just drop it. I don't even care how I do it. You know, that's the level of planning ahead of ahead. So that way, when you do look at what we call it, the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure back in the day, but that's for some of those people that's in my age time frame. They would plant something, and it'll be in the future, but it ended up being really in the past. So then once they start to think of it in the present, they'll unbury it, and then there it was. And this is how, you know, our mind mentally has to do that. And then not only that, you know, because we say that and then you finally got it, you know, the story that they do in there, they'll be like, and don't forget to do that in the future so that it'll happen. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, this is why we call it memos. You write a lot of memory down, and it's from your ordi, and your ordi happens to be your planets, and these planets carry a concepts of your plane nets. And so nuts, when the water travels, because we're not from this one particular planet, we're in a whole bunch of these planets. So the plane nets, or the nuts of water, cosmic, galactic, omniverse, universe, are different plasma water. So that's why when you eat an apple, right, it's really juicy. That's a particular type of water. If you eat an orange, same thing, you know, different type of juice. When you find out that your mouth, when you think of something and you're like, man, this looks so good, and then your mouth start watering, that's synovial fluid. This synovial fluid is the same thing like oxytocin. And the oxytocin is in your body from your mother that gave out breast milk. Well, the same thing as the Milky Way is breast milk. It's breast milk in the galaxy. So you seeing from the nebula, or what we call it, from the actual idea, the Pandora's box, looking down or up, as we're looking, we're seeing perceptions of everything, bending basically. So we avatars, but in the matrix. Sometimes, like if you take your phone out, take a picture of the sky once it's flashing, and see if you don't see lines that cut straight in between, you know, the picture as you're taking it. There's so much within the now that there's an in between this world that we don't see. And because that's missing, a lot of us, you know, because once we see it, we'll be like, oh, I want to stay over there. But then it's like, no, you couldn't handle it if you stayed over there. That's why you're over here. And this what explains the Avatarian. From when we go back, look at the first one, you'll find out that he was in a wheelchair. And because he was his brother, not the first one, he was the second one. So this is like an Alice in Wonderland. And he had to downsize himself because he didn't have the language from the book that he's supposed to be reading. That's what the Helios Biblios represents, the Bible. So this is two books, two bulls. And he had his legs, you know, from Sagittarius on down. He had to use the wheelchair. The wheelchair represents the mutal side. So he had to learn everything from ground up. And because of that, it made him at a challenge. And he was feeling like upset because he couldn't do as everybody. Yet he wanted to do better than them because he felt like having no legs made him want to go harder in the paint. So if you notice, the scientist was saying, oh, he's just a jarhead like the rest of them. I don't need one of these type. And he's thinking like, well, dang, I came here, you know, because this is something I wanted to always do. And she's looking at it like, Nah, your background don't match. So you got to have a matching background. And that's just like when we're saying our personality and our characteristics. And if you notice, just like in the Matrix, they on that same aspect. Like, Neo came in the room and she was like, he was like, you the Oracle. And she was like, yeah. And then he was like, well, I came to find out if I'm the one. And she's like, well, if you asking, then you ain't the one. So it was like in his mind, he's like, well, dang, I guess I ain't then. So she's like, well, I'm sorry, you ain't the one then. And it gets to a point where they're not going to convince you that you're the one. It's up to you to convince yourself you're the one. And once you get that motivation into you, it was like the same thing that fell down above his head is know thyself. And once you know thyself, it's not just thyself, it's with the universe. And not just with the universe, is with the most high that you call God. That's within, that's without, that's above, that's so below, and that's in the middle. So how you learn your 5-pointed star was the Melchizedek. How you learn your heart being open as the green, as the breath, as you're breathing, as someone who go up a mountain, Mount Sinai, Mount Nod, any mountain, is an atlas and an axis. That's here, your shoulders. So when the bull is at an axis, we're going into the Avatarian, connection. So you now is the aviator to up here. Your fire is your head. The earth is from your neck to where your stomach is at. And then of course, when it get back to the next fire, it'll be down here in the hips, but it had to get here first in the heart. Now, from fire to earth, fire in the eyes to fire in the heart to fire in the hips. This is what you're seeing through Avatar as they're learning the stages of being first. They were in a place where they had all this connection. And then, of course, that water, being how the water is a separation to the beginning from what the fire was actually showing, crystals. So crystals happens to be pressured water that was heated up so much that it became pressurized, and then it became solid. Versus steaming out, it's solidified. And this is where you get your crystals or your crystal silica from. And the same silica, you eat it. The same silica is on your skin. If you scratch yourself right now, and you thinking that's dirt, that's not dirt. That's silica under your nails. So these are the parts of why the crystals was an important thing. And you saw this all through this being where they were at. The amethyst being a higher to the 7th of that. So you see the planets basically in the same alignment as what the gems and the stones would do. And this is how you would know, like the periodic table and the pyramid itself, and how the sun, when it hits it, there's a certain alignment that it shows. And so it can show you a trajectory. We were trajectory people, not just project things. We were a trajectory. So it was like same thing as the crystal. Even in the darkness, you could see light. And so that's how you hear about the Green Lantern or the Lantern people, and how that their skin was so dark, they were able to shine at night. So the same night is not just N-I-G-H-T, it was K-N-I-G-H-T. So you hear the K-N, you hear, okay, the K-N, that was still the N, and the N, not the N-G, G. So this is where it got changed from the Kn to the Gn. But you hear Ka-na, Ka, Kana. Now, if it was that and was changed, Kanite, to now night, Canite, Cane. So you're hearing these connections. There we go. With my Green Lantern brethren, and they showed him first melanated. They had to reverse it and have him come from another planet. Oh, this would be saying like he came from Africa versus being here in Virginia. Now, if you know about green, green is in Virginia, as in the copper. That's copper tone. So just like the penny represents copper. So the green, really, the whole connection for the green is what we're talking about is Venus. It's also the connection. Virgo is also connection. So versions. So you got the green people, you got the blue people, and you got the black people. When we hear about the black, we go as far as the Olmec. And then when you hear about the green, we hear, like I said, about Asar or Ptah or even Imhotep. And even Heru, they have a symbolic joint of him looking green as well after the afterbirth of the sun being the bird. Then you have also the blue. The blue represents the Rama. So you hear Rama up there as a black-blue connection. Then there's so much that if you know more of it that makes sense to you, pull that stuff out, because this is where we're seeing how our colors, when we're favoring our chakras, like for us, like mainly, you know, a dark of a tone can stay in its higher chakras for a long period of time. Not first chakra, second chakra, or even third chakra. We can come past that and sit in there for the longest. Now, the problem is not everybody can do that. So what will end up happening is, just like how you know about the mountains, they traveled up the mountains, or they traveled in different areas so that they can still keep their conjuring energy going, because they felt like being in the area that they were at will only just stop them from, you know, proceeding where they were supposed to be going to, the original of what they are. So they'll tell them, you got to be up in the mountain. You got to be someplace where ain't nobody can talk to you or something like that. And then that's where you find out they might either excel, either A, to excel, or B, they go crazy. And that's how you find out that people that, you know, are intelligent can also be crazy. And there's this thin line. And that's why most people who say, you know, don't do psychedelics, don't do, you know, these things that, you know, we don't know how you're going to turn. You know what I mean? You can favor the, you know, Elohim, you know, versus the Anunnaki. And then because you don't know which either one, you know, you didn't do no study about the Sumerians or anything to where, if it's to ground you. If you look at the movie Inception, that can help a whole lot of us who say, oh, I need to do something different than Christianity. I get it. I get it. You want to jump out and get your feet wet and, you know, I don't want to do ayahuasca and mushrooms at the same time. Are you serious? Like, well, I think you need to take it a slow step, micro dose, a lot of that. You got to get some shamans around, learn some music that you can play, live music. The groundwork is mainly important. So if you're a person that say, oh, I like smoking all the time. Okay. Well, a person that likes smoking all the time, if you're a tobacco smoking person, that's not good that you're smoking all the time. Now you're going to figure out how it's not good all the time doing it. Because that's what this whole experience was about, not to go overboard on anything. You know, even water can kill you. So it's not the idea of going into psychedelics is supposed to do that. What I'm saying is you have to know how to find your ego, tame your ego, even if you have to kill it. Yeah, I'm about to kill the ego for a second, just so you could get in a relief moment and say, okay, because your ego never dies, for real, for real. Yeah, but you might have to just, hey, sit down so I can figure myself out. Man, I've been ego, sit down somewhere, you know, and this is why your mama said, you know, you better sit down and ground yourself, you know, and that's how you end up being a child, learning how to ground you had to tune. So if you ever noticed that the Masonic movements, they came with an erect building. That meant that it's 90 degrees sitting straight. It's 90 degrees. And when you see a 90 degrees sitting straight, you know what I'm saying? That 90 degrees is important. See how the body, see how the body in position? That's important, how to sit. And if you notice this, same as a mushroom, but the head, this part is like gaining the higher source of the source. And we noticed that the Marais, the M-A-O-R-I, they had this cone head concept going on. So it was like pine cone or cone head. These were the connections. Asar, Aset. They were known as the corn. So they had a corn head, cone head. So there's these other things. And then there's the knots. The knots represents the snail head. So there was like swirls on the head. That was the Fibonacci concept. They still There's still things that we've been utilized for the longest and said this is old or this is new. It's new to you, but it's old to someone else. So that's why it could be called ancient. Ancient is really not as ancient when it comes down to the antique behind it. The lotus, that lotus is important. If you ever notice the lotus is showing longevity from one side of the continent to the other, and this is important because we knew that when it came down to the snow, certain things didn't grow in the log, but a lotus would, and that's what let us know about life after death. And so insurrection, and so there's the ball on top, and then on top of that, there's this energy that you can put inside this, so you can put your incense. So now you can see the actual fire coming out of your ball. You know what I mean? So this is where you see, or this being that is a Coptic jar, we knew it as the water. So with water, there's fire. With fire, there's water. And that's how you really, know yourself from a projection of spirit. Spirit always been there. It's just different levels to the spirit. Spirit can be down, and then spirit can go up. So that's how it became the snake, the serpent, the plum. That whole naga, that was because of the serpent energy. So serpentine, kundalini, stretching your body would have been even doper or more stronger, magnificent if you saw them stretching, in there and doing some stretching and some flipping, getting the martial arts in would have been like, yo, this is where it's at. Yet if it did that, we would have started really picking it out to knowing that this is Buddha that it really showing, and getting down to it, the nitty gritty where I just had to piece this all, because they give it to us in pieces. I can tell you that. It's so widespread, that's why it's a little white lie. But then it's a big old black lie because it's all our stuff. You're like, hey, that lie, it's over there. It's over there. It's over there. It's over there. You got to put it together. So, like, if you even think about the sources of the hats, like I was saying, the cone, the conal, the shape of the town, the shape of the buildings, always looking for the shapes of how they're putting the shape of it. And then, of course, this is just one level of, us looking at from one continent to the next. And then there's this level to that same, conical concept, but it's just different on the material, different on the significance behind it. Whether it's like a Igbo or another tribe, you know what I'm saying? And then it can still have bamboo, but now is it bull that's being put on top of it? So there's levels to when we see the experiences, how much are we really in tune with it? That now can say that we widespread. And now you can see how all of us around the land, from the L's to the Bays to the Al's, because you said AL, right? AL is connected to OL. So we said All Bay, L Bay, Old Bay. So the OL became the Olmec. So you hear Olmu, Almalo, Alman. Never forget the Almanac. Never forget the Almos. The what it said, never forget the Alamo. So the Alamo, Allah, Allahu, Allahumma. These are different notations that helped us learn the connotation and the denotation. When they hear Amin, Aminta, Aminet, Aminra, Aminre, there's different ways that was put to create that extra. When it was shortened, then you hear the word Amin, Amun, or you hear the word amendment. So now you're creating a summons. You're summoning energy. So Sumer, Summer, Sumerian text. We're putting out energy constantly with a remembrance. Just didn't hear ourselves saying it until we start saying, like I just did it. Like Tahi, Taha, da. You're saying the, but you're saying Taudi. Without knowing you're saying Taudi. So now you can feel Tahuti before you say the. You're like, oh, that's what I'm getting ready to say. And then you say, like, if I say before, I know some of us got on me because of the language that I speak. Yet it's not because I'm speaking it, it's because I'm texting it. And that's getting on people's nerves. And I don't mind it getting on their nerves, because it shouldn't get on their nerves. It should actually open them up a little more. It should say, oh, I like that. and then get them to more open their green heart. The green heart is to see it not being colonized. We colonize ourselves so much that you gotta have a doctorate degree to be in whoever you are to agree with everybody else. And then it's like you're doing a J.J. Evans and James, where one is a scholar from acting and one who's a comedian. He had to learn this from off the street and become on stage, and then on the stage, off the stage. And yes, you can have Esther Rose who's in there and saying, yes, I came from the political school of hard knocks of learning. And then at the same time, this cat, he don't know nothing. Yet she has to learn that he's the new world right here. So you can't erase him. You got to get more in tune with him until she start having to say, Dynamite. And then she's like, I don't like saying that word. But it became the fad that she said, we got to make this cultural. And I get it. That's what we have to do. Yet we can't separate each other to do it. I'm not going to separate you because you're Christian. I'm not going to separate you because you're Islam. Keep that. If that's what makes you strong, go ahead and keep that. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is apply what this is, what we just did right now, so you won't feel like you're separating from us, because this is what's going to end up happening. I'm going to show you the 13 moon cycles over and over again. The 13 times of itself is the 6. The 3 times 4, which is the 7 plus, which is the 7. If I said 3 plus 4 is 7. If I said 3 times 4 is 12. This is why it's important to learn that. The 5. Why is 5 important? Because if it's 4 of it, 4 to 5, that's 20, right? But if it's 4 plus the 5, that's 9. That's why it's birth. These things became a part of our science because it was our math. Now, the problem is we didn't study the O before we said A, omega. We got to know omega before we say alpha. And for 0, before we say 1. And when you write it, 0, then 1. Don't write 1, 1, 2, and keep on going. When you wrote 1, there should be a 0 somewhere in there. What happened to us is we're still expressing Roman things. And yet we're saying we're not Roman, yet we're doing a lot of Roman things. Romance. Look at how it's getting ready to be in Valentine's Day. People going to start doing that same Valentino thing when it was a pedophilia character. He's not even for our people. So for us to repeat a culture that's not ours, when they're showing us our culture and we're not even utilizing it, that's an oxymoron in itself. We're actually now more ignorant towards the reality. And now that's why they call it domesticated or minority. Minority is not because you're past the age of 18. Minority is because you're not in the majority. And minority meaning that because you're not in the majority, you're speaking at an 18 and under age. So we got to get out of the immaturity of a lot of the things that we've been doing for the longest. If I say we speaking politically, then there's words that I could use also in the Black Law Dictionary. Ab initio, de facto, de jure, civilis mortis. If you know civilis mortis, they say you're dead in the color of the law, and you're dead in the laws of color. You're dead in the laws of Ma'at also, because it represents justice and it's blind. So if you're thinking color, as in colored, black, blue, all these colors, you're a crayon. And this is how they're taking away this point of nationality. It's still going to go right to this. We're talking about nationality. If you cannot be a nation of your people, doing a nation for other people, things that they're into, that's your culture, then there's no expression you're giving our people. You're a drainage. You're a battery that's draining the rest of the community. And what we're realizing is, no, you can't be docile and expect to be called a God. No, you can't be having more children and you can't help these children out. And you expect to be called a God or a king or even a man to that knowledge. No, you're not going to be called a woman if you're just taking a man to get pregnant and utilize him so you can get on EBT. No, that's not really being you, who you are, if you're just stuck on EBT. You want to do some other things. That's been crippling us. We got WIC and all these other things that's crippling us. And I'm not saying that you can't utilize it. Utilize it to the best of your requirement. Shoot, if you can utilize it, that's smart. I would just say don't let it utilize you, period. All these things that we're doing, whether it be this right here, what I'm doing, whether it be for my sister Joy for putting this out here, because it takes time to do these things. It's not going to be something that you can do overnight. It's got to be something that you walked around, did the study for the longest, and you said, oh, okay, you know what? I'm waking up. I refuse to stay down. I refuse to, lay down and not get back up anymore. This right here, this is a picture in the Bible. Now you say in the Bible, yeah, in the Bible. Move it up, move it up, move it up. And let's see what's going on in this picture. But in this picture, there's a woman, and she's hauling off the men. She said, enough of this. This is your picture of Kali Ma. This is your picture of why they're showing it in the avatars. Why they're showing the woman is king. Why they showing that woman is the matriarch. They're showing it to you that eventually this woman gonna take the rope around these men's heads and get them up out of here because of the egos. So it's not just the woman, it's the actual principality. So we're talking about principles. This is why Moses went up the mountain, came back down. 42 virtues was 42, was it 420? The same connection of coming out of a 360. Seeing yourself coming into a 24 in reverse. 42 is a virtue. So when we think about our livelihood at a 6, the vortex, the mother, she's the one that gave us birth. She's the one that had the actual first headpiece. See her headpiece on her head. Her headpiece represents that of the feather that's above her head, the Ma'at. So when we're talking about balance, we're talking about the age of Aquarius, it represents the Ma'at. This is in the Bible. I got this book in the Bible. Now you say, no, that's not the Bible. What are you talking about? This is the Bible. I'm gonna just open up a page. One of them old school Bible. I don't really see the date on it. I don't want to put the date on it, but this is in the book of Proverbs. I ain't even gonna look through the whole book, but anyway, I just want to show you this is the only page that I had caught on to that was the actual, real live picture, and everything else was like they showing us, maybe look like a little bit of Egypt or something like that. But this was the picture that I saw, and it made sense to me because as I looked at it, it was a picture I was supposed to know. That's why when you know intuitive energy, it was meant for you to know it, and it gets you to the avatar. This is the avatar you're looking at. This is where they show Gilgamesh. This is where they show the woman being on top, Kali Ma, the whole connection to Shiva. Where they got right now, Doctor Strange with his hands going into like 8 different poses of other hands. The same thing they got in Harder They Fall. The brother who was standing in front, robbing the train, he had his gun, both his hands out with the guns, and then he had his woman with gun. His woman was standing in the back with her gun. Regina was holding her gun. Then they had 2 more people in the back. That's another illustration showing us what these India deities are shown to us. That there's levels to these 8, as in your arms. The principles of 4 women and 8 men. And the 8 men represents your masculine and feminine, being that they had to be men in the physical to equal out 1 woman. I mean, that's how it's been. We as far as our science, the real reason why they had Cain and Abel, they were supposed to be learning their left and their right. No, not what the left hand does by the right. Yeah, it was supposed to be the illustration of showing 2 expressed with 3. And so when Seth or Set was put in between, It's supposed to be a conversation of jealousy. And this is why you got the sororities or the, the fraternities being to separate, the sun from the rest of the star or the moon, the mother or the father, the family, the pushed out fathers, the deadbeat dads, and of course now the Pink Panther child. The Pink Panther child was created through the Black Panther child. And if you knew about the Pink Panther, they were showing them on TV a lot. And there was the idea of, even when you heard it, it might have been Snagglepuss. And then you got right now, what is it? Puss in Boots. You know what I'm saying? So they're giving you a softer version of the battle cat called Cringer when he's changed. So the cat is the cowardly cat that's being shown. And we knew it since the Oz or the Wiz. But they always want to show the king basically having less sting in itself.
The cowardly lion.
Yes. And if you see it, Fleet DeVille, what is it? Fleetwood DeVille. Oh, it's a Cadillac. His name was a Cadillac car in the Wiz. I was like, come on, you serious? But it's the illustration of the Melchizedek alchemy. How do you get out of your fear? Is to face it. So if you have any fears, any doubts of yourself, just like I was saying in the beginning, and I kind of went on a tangent, was the fact that we got to go back to the insects and learn that, yeah, there you go. And in that, you see the scarecrow, which is how we write our name, the lion, which is the heart of, you can be puppeteered into things. And then the Tin Man is how you're a soldier to these things. And so if you don't learn it, Dorothy, she's that representation of the explorer. So that would be like the 9, right? Tin Man is the 10. The scarecrow represents the 11. And then the 12 would be the heart of Leo. But really that heart is really 5. Because we're talking about Leo, not talking about Pisces. Yet Pisces got to have enough heart to do what it does. So that's where the heart can be in the feet. So you have the feet that separates the body from head to your toes. So that's why you can have rituals or what we call it, AMA, back to AMA, AMMA, a massage on your feet, and it actually helps your heart. You can do a massage on your hand, and it helps your heart. So there's certain modals that if you don't know anything about it, look up Shiatsu, SHIATSU, Shiatsu. And that's a form of meridian cleansing for the stomach. Now, they did it in George Jefferson with George on the brother's back, Mr. Bentley. And he was stepping on his back. But the way he was stepping on his back, of course, you could hurt someone. So you got to be careful where the line of the actual scales of your back is at, the vertebrae, and just walk on the left and the right side, never in the middle. But what you can find out is taking a chair or 2 chairs and keeping your weight on a controlled level to where when you do that on someone's back, you're going to release some toxins that's within their body that needed to travel. Sometimes the toxins are trapped. So it's in your scapula or it's in your vertebrae where you're like, oh man, I can't really move. And it got me to be stiff. So there's trigger points within the body that if you find out how to step on that particular area, it can release that toxin. Okay, you're seeing it right now. Get ready to do it right now. But you notice that George takes his shoes off. He doesn't just keep his shoes on. So that's a form of the grounding. Now, if you notice, they also utilize the same technique in different continents. So Asia be mainly one of them. Yeah. And now there's certain areas that you can actually, if you're, he's doing the lower back, and if you're really good at it, you can actually do the higher part of it too. And of course, with women, they got more up top, so that's less pressure you want to put up there anyway, because you don't want to cause any cancer issues. What I did notice about that as well, speaking about cancer, breast mammograms, the mammogram or the mammary glands that's in the breast, usually women catch a lot of cancer because they're not getting enough massaging of the breast. Men, y'all love breasts, but y'all don't massage them enough. So that's why women be having the issue. And then on top of that, and they say, well, she need to massage herself. Well, I mean, if she by herself, but if you over here doing something, you gonna help her out. But if not, massaging the breast, especially up here in this area, getting that to move around, because there's a lot about what we call the scrumpies that's in the body. They actually stay in for a longer period, and you want to actually circulate that. So if from the chest, even men, you can get actual cancer up here too. So learning how to push the actual toxin around can help. They call it lymphatic tissue. So, and I'm not talking about the actual nipple. I'm talking about up here on the higher part, near the clavicle side of the sternum and the areas of that area, not the actual, the nipple. We were talking about how to cleanse stress. And so that's another way. Now, of course, added that in Avatar, that'd have been dope. We'd be like, oh shoot, they over here practitioners and everything. They didn't have that in there. Yet they did have, one science versus the science of the other. So you did see that in there. They just did more like a voodoo, but yet didn't do too much voodoo, because it was more like some watered down version, some incense and kundalini caking and stuff, like my brother be saying, some half of the conscience. Yet it gave it an outlook to look at how you can still be spiritual even in the other realm. And that's another way of looking at how, like I was saying with Inception, they had shamans. That's what you were looking at in the movie Inception. They had shamans who would sit with you or would help you go through it with you. Now, the thing is, there was something for your memory to hold in your hand or in your pocket or just around you, so that if you ever, zoomed out too far, that'll be your anchor. And because this is basically who we are in our livelihood, like blueberry is a good memory. There's stones that also help. Aragonite, clear quartz, good mastery stone. Amethyst, definitely great for that. Groundwork, tiger's eye. So red, blue, golden. The golden is to help ground. The blue is to help talk, get your conversation, speech, and the red is for time traveling. So if you really, want to get tuned, find those things, put those things more around you. I know it gets kind of bumpy because, through time and travel, we put something there and then it's misplaced, and then you got to go back all over again, reset. So that's why it's good to have more than one area, location for your crystals. Put an altar and then put some up there. Let it energize there. Put some in your windowsill. Do it that way. Put some in the ground in your area. If you got your mama's area, somewhere where you're going to be very, very familiar with. If you notice that the cemeteries are great as far as where your mama and your daddy's family, whatnot, to have all of that in there. So that's where your real land is at. And this is why you see in that Avatar where they kept having these people move. I was like, yo, you can't have these people move all this whole time and not tell them how to not, stop them from moving.
if they had land up there, they're supposed to have been respecting that regardless, you know, killing or not. But the reason why they were doing the killing is because they were making it seem like they were animals. And that's how, again, we're going full circle to the nobility. You got to know your higher self. That way you know who's governing you. And it's not just what's governing you. When you think what's governing you, then that's the overrole over you. And that's why we feel like you got to get up, go to work for who? You know what I mean? And you got to pay these bills for who? After a while, you're going to see that the reality kicks in to, are you indigenous to this land? And is it to that point where, just like for them, not to say we're going to take a stand, it's just that we're going to see where we're at so that we can be more of a productive versus destructive, or being constructive for what we are doing is going to be the help versus, you know, not seeing the construction behind it. Because a lot of buildings right now, you're probably seeing it, are massive, being put up around you this whole entire time, like the Snorlax, and I mean like the Lorax. And it's like, if we don't see how the trees are being cut, where is your oxygen coming from now? You know, and if there are going to be so many people in this side of the land, how are they going to be reacting? Or they ain't even thinking about these type of things. There's going to be a moment of the Benjamin Banneker Bay, who was the almanac connection to how we knew how to travel and navigate on this land, to the Noble Drew Ali, that connection to how we are now, to who's going to govern, how we're going to govern. And it's going to be, you know it as peace officers. That's what was taught before anybody knew what police officers or policy man was about. So there's these familiarizations, us as a people, you know, law and civic. How do we speak towards each other? So that way, when we do, you know, look at it like, oh, these are now avatars, what state of mind are they to be called avatars? Because they could be surrogates. It might not be avatars at all. Watch their teeth. Is it cannibalism? Because we all don't do cannibalism. We're all not into cannibalism. That's why it was important to learn your non-enods or enads, to where Sekhmet, who drink the blood and ate of the meat, was because of the eating the meat was basically like drinking the wine, or eating the meat is like drinking the blood. So the blood and the wine became this neglect that happened. And because there's a subversity in these realms and it's dealt with the moon cycles, how did one tame the woman, right? And made her seem like she's some kind of beast, and then created that too on top of her while they tamed her. So now she feels docile during the week ending and not getting her strength beginning. And then by 13 moon cycles, she's done for. And then got to do it again, 13 moon cycles. Yet we still fulfilling the other stuff, the 12 moons as the months, and not seeing it. You see what I'm saying? Or the 9 months as birth and still not seeing it. As in you giving a cake and put it in front of someone and you blowing out the lights and making some kind of so-called dream or wish like Martin Luther King. Yet no provisionaries for none of it. No fulfillments as it's supposed to be fulfilled already 3 months prior. That's why he put the cake in front of you. That's all I'm stating. Like, we got to come out of this lie. We got to stop doing the Pinocchio thing where the nose is getting so big that you just believe in all these lies now. And they're more bigger than you. And your nose is big. Why are you doing it? And you got to keep your nose up. What if you get a nosebleed? What if it's not coming out of it? That whole reality behind, are you a wooden boy or a real boy? And even if you said real boy, are you a real human? No, no, no. Are you a real man? You're a real woman. Now, I know we're getting called that. You're saying, oh, a real man does this, a real woman does that. I ain't saying it like that. Because there's also this real on a man as well, and the real on a woman. That's the marionette. When this marionette was put out, it was so that we could be a puppeteer towards this fake reality that we're not even a part of. Now we're starting to do it. We got mannequins as being now the new wave of reality. That's why they put the avatar in front of you. So you can get used to, oh, I want to be this big blue, you know, not me clone body. I want to jump in there. I want to do some stuff that's not me anymore. I'm going to put myself in the assimilated or augmented reality and play this so much that when I lay down, that's all I'm going to see. Or that's going to be in control of me after a while. I had a brother say that. He didn't play the game so long that when he laid down, he felt like he was being controlled. I said, wow, that's some MK Ultra or what? This is these things we got to wake up to. You got to actually look at yourself again. You know, sit back in those ritual time frames. Get around some shamans, for real shamans, not no fake ones. Not the ones that trying to get all your money or get in your pants because they see you look good. I'm talking about the ones that say, okay, I want to see you healthy, and I'm doing whatever it takes to see your healthiness. And since you want to stay so focused on it, that's why I'm going to help you, not for the money. Because I get it. Some of y'all are out there for the money, and that saddens me to know that y'all are out there. And then it looks bad even for people like myself that want to go to y'all, and I can't because that's just, nah. That's not how we all live. We never live like that. You know? I got a daughter. Yeah, that's $ PRECIOUSKM. Precious KM. $. And then my son. KEETAY with an extra Y. Keetay. That's all. Send that Cash App to them. Whatever you feel like you want to give to me, you don't have to give it to me. Give it to them. That's what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it to be present enough for them to have a present, for them to have a gift. For just like what you see up there, it was about the father being who he is now in Avatar 2, being a father. I said, look at this. They're going to take our fatherhood and everything. And he's over there with a sister. And we know she's a sister because we see her. She got a sister face. I was like, man, he got our sister here with her. Man, this is more Australian crapola or what? So you seeing the merge and how they're going to wipe like man out the picture and have everybody living for him. And everything's good. No drums, no new music, no instruments. Yeah, that's going to be bland, bland, bland. If y'all want him as the avatar. I mean, bad enough, he can't really act. I was like, man, this character, he's all right, I guess. But it's that reality, man. I love it. I give time to give thanks to being up here, you know, give me a moment here to vent some of that out because I was like, wow, this movie is deep. It had me look at the Birth of a Nation, the Warner Brothers all over again. Had me look at the albinos, albinoism, Rudy people, how the red of the skin to the red hair, how that's there in the movie, but not in the movie. So, and then our Asians, how our Filipinos, the connection to our real strong, you know, dark, deeply rooted melanin to how we even lived off the land from building versus just hunter and gatherer. So there's a lot of me seeing that in the navigation of itself, and then who was the older person, and then how old was that being, and were they living in that being of ignorance or in nobility? You know, that was major to see those things. The colors, side effects were great in the movie. What I noticed y'all probably didn't see out of the first movie was them actually taking the trip like the ayahuasca, just like they did in Black Panther with the heart herb. So both of them had a relation. I think they just wanted to keep lesser of that out. And then, of course, there's also the sex scene that they said if they put that in there, it would have been rated R. So they kept that out as well. So you're going to end up probably have to, I guess, get the DVD to see the more exquisite type, what they was really wanting to show you. But, you know, because of the writers and the directors and the producers, everyone got their own, you know, three-way cut. That's Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. So when we know it, it's really mainly they're having to show it from a Buddha side. They know that the 7 point, or we know that the 7 point is the basic through the chakras. So if we can get you to go all the way on up and come on down, they did what they supposed to have done. The movie had a highlight, and it had a low light, and it had a mid light. So that's the realms that usually we find out of the Trinity. That's the basic fear that most people basically go through. And you could be Christian, Islam, or Jehovah Witness, Hebrew Israelite. It wouldn't even matter, because this is the duel that we face to find a Trinity, and then come out of that, which is your 4, and then that's how you end up finding 4 plus the 3, or times it, and that's through your getting up, being in the middle of whatever you're going through, and then you gotta lay it down. You gotta come back into laying it down and do it all over again, and that's how you find Aker, Aker, is the 2 cats on one side and the other, and then there's the Baset, which is the dark coming into light. There's Mahesh, Maash. That's the cat that has the dagger, is masculine. And then you have Sekhmet, which is the last of the sun, which, just like how we were saying from Kansu, represents Kepara. So being the connection to having the sun acknowledgement, Sekhmet was the last to see the fire and create the child out of that. And so Sekhmet is consort to Ptah. That's why there's a lot of ways to look at this movie. Take some pieces from where you know it at, add your own pieces, and then look at it again, and you're like, oh, shoot, that's what they're telling me. And then you see, like the X's and the vortexes of 6s being put in front of you. Movies really do get strong on that, because they want to show you, nativity, Navy, Navi, the whole 6, the whole Virginia energy, Sec, the hexman, the hex, Heka is power. Heka represents power. So the more they got to the 6 or the vortex, them coming out of the beehive or a cave, anything that was in a womb aspect was the whole, kind of like giving you that main thing. And then if you look at their face, they mainly look like cats. They look like cat people. They ain't gonna say that yet. It's more like a cat / bat / like you got a couple of mixtures in there, but it's like, what in the world is they? There's a whole mixture of something in there. But yeah, I get thanks. That at least being able to see this and then make it another reason to show what we can talk about, because we might never get up here and say nothing, and then you got Brother Sanchez saying it, and then you got whoever you want saying it. You're like, man, I could say this stuff too, and you're like, but you never did it, so it gets a point to even ourselves how you learn it from the numbers. What I'm saying, 0 to 1. If you can study the mother in this movie, you can see the son. And so from the Duat or the Duwaters, and as you see up there from the doctor, being that she's supposed to be the one who's supposed to have, all that feelings from the last movie, now have a child that has more feelings than she had for herself. That's what was kind of like, wow. You're seeing the adaptation versus just adopt, because a lot of us can adopt situations. We just don't know what we're adopting ourselves into. And I think that's major when it comes down to how to look at the people from a large landmass and now put them back together and say, okay, since we now know it as the Rubik's Cube and we didn't separate everybody, how do we put everybody into the point of saying, if this person came from the Olmecan side, could it be that the Tartarians came over here, connected to them, and then the Tartarians being that they have Moorish ability versus Masonic ability, and then Masonic not being so much Freemason, if it is Mason, you know what I mean? Or is it Freeman? Because when Emancipation came out, it was still kind of giving us the 1800s, while this movie, Avatar, is still depicting us in 1800s. So it's like you're giving me a kind of a cartoonish movie, and then you give me a movie that's really saying 1863. Now you can catch that too. On 1863, it was called Freedman Act. It was not called Emancipation. Not in 1863. That's too fast. 1865, that's when it was called Emancipation. And the reason why is because they revised it. Why did they revise it? Because they got rid of Abraham Lincoln before they even could revise it. So that's another way of saying, Bernstein, I see what you're doing over here. You're over here changing the frame. And just imagine that. You wearing blue, right? And your name Aladdin connection. And here you are as Will Smith. Yeah, we catching on you. We catching on you. All your blue stuff, whether it be Chris Rock with the osmosis, we seeing all your blue people. All the little Smurfs. We already know. So some little setup going on here. And it got a lot to do with this blue transparent or communication station. And because you're using blue so much, it's starting to wear and tear on you. The lies cannot always stay as truth. Because, truth don't ever change. Lies, you got to keep making them up. Keep on making them up. We're going to figure you out. That's how we're going to end up doing, figuring out everything you're doing, which is giving us a moment right now. This is why I said A to Z is your Aztec. Learn your Aztec, you can find all this stuff out. This is nothing but, math in my eye. Like I said, if you know your age, you studying that already, going back to the 13 times 28, find that out. 1320, that's a frequency, right? Don't just do 12 months. Go and get a little bit sharper now. You already did 12 months of me being here. Yeah, at the same time, let's do this right quick while we're talking about 12 months. Go back 9 months, right? The day you say, oh, I was born every 12 months. Go back on that 9th month and then go 3 months before that and then celebrate. Start doing that. Then you start, channeling up. Because right now, y'all behind and we behind y'all. So until we get to the catching up, we all behind, And that's why I said to myself, I'm not going to take a lot of y'all cash flow and all of these other things until we all right where we're supposed to be at. Because that's not what a God energy would do. A God energy would rather be you right there with the God form. So now you can see what God can do around you. That's why the sun came down to the earth. So now everybody can get a feel of what God energy is like. Then when it rises back up, you'll rise with it. That's it.
Well, you have heard a lot. Okay. And I'm surprised you just now taking a water break. If it was me, somebody been done told me to drink some water.
I know, right? No, I just felt the need, the necessary. Because at first in the beginning, I was like, whoa, I think I do need some water. But then something keep you on the drive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes we fast, sometimes we even eat, but then we eat a light meal, just for something like this just to get it out. Because I know when it comes down to vending and venting, there's different aspects. It's not, like some of it is really, 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 really from the core, and you got to be on that focus to say, okay, let me stay this way until, I get this done now. Okay, all right, I'm gonna get some water or I can eat. Like if you're a dancer, shoot, I don't eat until I finish dancing. Then I get out there and okay, where the food is? I'm hungry. Or if I'm a drummer, I drum real good and get all that drumming out. Then I'm like, whew, okay, where to eating at? I got to eat something like bad, like, because we wouldn't know that that's the part through the empathy. We get really compassionate that we even get that burnout stage. Like I was saying earlier about how you can run and you're on that first wind of the run and you running, and you're like, dang, I ain't gonna make it. You're like, I'm gonna stop right here. But then something kick in and be like, man, I think I got some more energy. I can do this. you know, and that's where it's at, you know. I feel like that's why when it comes down to these people that really do the work, there's going to be that shows it. Not a 15-minute man, not a 1 hour man, a 3 hour man, or even a 5 hour man, because they done set in their self long enough that they don't even lose focus of their own entertainment, that they can just keep on going, you know. And, you know, if that's the cause to the orator, and how even from the Malcolm X that we knew, there was a reason for him becoming El Hajj Malik Shabazz and not just stay as Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was saying to us that we're all our own leaders, and you have to now start figuring out how to lead and not, you know, expect somebody to help you lead yourself. You know, I mean, you can expect somebody to help you lead yourself. I'm not saying, what I'm saying is not have someone lead you is what basically was being said, because we kept seeing it so many times of the burnt out Mohammedism, and the fact that, you know, we know about the greats and the greatest that whether it be Obama and other people that you might want to put into your highlights as, you know, those who you think can be at a greater aspect. Yet to me, the honesty of it was this brother here, like, to come 3 times fold in himself, Malcolm Little to, you know, the actual Malcolm X from what we know as Cincinnati Red, and then El Hajj Malik Shabazz. That's a 13 zodiac, you know. That's the 13 tribe. That was the now I can see where the 13 come from, and, you know, and look at it as, okay, this is the same thing as the McDonald's that a lot of us wouldn't pay attention to, that it became franchise. And just like Muhammad, it could be franchise, just like the letter M could be franchise, just like the MU could be franchise, just like the MU could be franchise, just like the ham could be franchise, just like the med or the MD can be franchise. That's why there's so much that DMV, which we call Detroit, I mean, did I say DMV? I meant to say Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. That's called DMV. This is the name that they put on a actual building, and they made it for a vehicle. So for us, we're able to take something, create what it was supposed to have been in the first place, because originally that didn't sound right in the first place. So we're these alchemists. We're these alchemists that can come up with, you know, the beyond of the beyond, and we have time to do it. That's why I feel like this is one of those purposes, and I thank you, sis, for having me up here so that that can be done.
Well, we appreciate and respect you for being here. Honor to you. Hold on, let me unmute you. I had a echo.
Okay, I said give thanks, respect to that.
All right, so at this time, we are going to end this broadcast, and we are going to definitely plan to expect to have Brother Buddha, Eternal El Bay, here on Karmic Dynasty again in the future, of course, and also to see him more on his own platform as well. I see further growth. I see it. If you would speak to everyone, your closings before we leave, and again, gratitude for being here on Karmic Dynasty platform again.
Give thanks. I do want to give a strong connection to my brother Shiva. Without my brother Shiva, man, he's my India brother. And I know at one point when I said Hindu, I really, You know, I highly speak of him all the time. And when I said Hindu, I felt I disrespected him so much that there was like no way I could take it back. But that's just like someone else calling you nigger, you know, and I didn't see the derogative behind it. Yet I wanted to address it and how to, you know. And yet he's the one that helped me with my ayahuasca experience. And I know that he has more to offer, the realities, not offer, but the tribute that we should be aware of. And of course, me not bringing down the fullness is just good right there to know that we don't have to show completely who our people are. These are the energies, the nomenclatures that, you know, are connected and collective. Um, what I would like to do on my next, if we could, I like to talk about Black Adam, because there was something significant about that. Oh yeah, while I'm up here, Emancipation, December 3rd, when it came over here in Virginia. So when it came over here on December 3rd, that represents 12, which is a 3, and it was on the 3rd, so that's a 33. So we talking about the vertebrae. I was like, yo, they're going in. All right, okay. Side note. Okay, so me personally, I am about helping out the breath. Yes, helping out. See how he got this whole connection and the hat and I mean, there's so much going on with the God aspect in this movie. We definitely can talk a little bit about that too on our next little connection. But I definitely want to talk about Black Adam because there's some God form in Black Adam, and you got to see that. I mean, they talk about the Ankh in there, and you can see the Ankh. So this is what Moon Knight supposedly did, but they didn't do it. So that let me know that they're kind of curving around Kemet, yet I got to see what they're going to give out while they're curving around it to make sense to us so that we'll see what we're familiar with. There is this connection about the breath. I go into it a lot, and since of my child, I helped him with breathing, his breathing technique. He is 20. My other child is at 6 months. So I'm learning the different cycles. I give thanks for them, and without them, I wouldn't be myself. So this is the avatars to me, and because of that, that helps out with the connection. How we see Power Man and what was it? The Iron Fist. You know what I'm saying? These were things I was into 70s watching the martial arts. So he was just cutting a tree just a minute ago. And I was like, look at him way up there. But he was running on bamboo trees earlier. So this is the thing. I give thanks. I'm on Instagram. You see it up here, Eternal Cuss. Also YouTube. I got Eternal El Bay up here on YouTube. I just got 100 subscribers. So please come up, like me, so I can get this going also. And that's about basically it. I'm at Herbal Market Wellness Center, 6523. That's Auburn Drive, South Military Highway, Virginia Beach, Virginia. Come check me out. I do shaman work as well. So if you ever want to get some sound bathing, some humming, just some chanting, I do chanting all the time. So link me up. Yeah, I do it all. So just as an artist, you know, whether it be drawing, drumming, dancing, I come over here, do something for $50. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I give thanks to you. Peace, wholeness, balance. Ashe.
Ashe. Yes, everyone, go see him at the shop. I visited the shop. That's where I first met him at in person. And then just from talking to him in that brief few moments, I knew I had to get him on the platform. So I'm glad he accepted my invite. I'm glad he has been here more than one time. And again, we'll see him again. Definitely, I am glad for everyone that has been here for this presentation and the knowledge that has been shared. And tune in to Karmic Dynasty again, subscribe to the platform, and welcome everyone here who is new and those who know. Enjoy your evening.